All right. Welcome to the September 24th, 2024 meeting of the Planning Board. First, we'll take a roll call to introduce board members and staff. Sean Weller.
Here.
Kate Nee.
Here.
I'm Ellen Rawlings. I'm here. We're also joined by Elijah Romulus, our town planner, Amanda Wolf, our housing and land use planner, Nora Locknane, our director of community and economic development, Jess Cole, our recording secretary, Jack Hatfield from Westwood Media Center, and we also have Karen Skinner-Catrone, who is our conservation agent. This meeting is recorded by Westwood Media Center and broadcast live on local cable television Comcast Channel 6 and Verizon Channel 42. Meetings are also live on the Westwood Media Center's YouTube channel. If you're interested in joining the meeting via Zoom, you can find the login directions in the Planning Board meeting notice that is posted to the calendar section of the town's webpage at https://www.townhall.westwood.ma.us/. We will begin the meeting with only the board members and staff unmuted and on video. As the chair recognizes individuals to speak, we will unmute them. Board members may choose to mute themselves when they are not speaking in order to minimize background noise. For applications, the chair will first invite the applicant to address the board and give a presentation summarizing what is being requested. Board members receive the application materials prior to the meeting and will have reviewed them. Board members may ask questions during and following the presentation. Staff and outside experts will provide comments to the board. If the issue includes the public hearing, the board will then proceed to the public comment portion of the public hearing and will restate the instructions. In this remote meeting format, residents and guests may participate in several ways. Attendees should raise their hand and wait to be unmuted and recognized to speak over the Zoom meeting application or from a telephone dial-up. We will be able to hear you but not see you. Additionally, comments may be submitted by email or regular mail prior to the meeting. When we come to that part of the meeting, I will remind everyone of the process. Following the public comment portion, the board will deliberate and make a decision or continue the hearing to a specific future date. All remote meetings require that votes be taken by roll call. When a motion and a second has been made, the chair will ask if there's any further discussion before proceeding to a roll call vote, and will then restate the results of the vote. All right. Before we start our agenda items, are there any changes to our agenda this evening, Elijah?
No.
All right. Then at this time, I'd like to invite our Conservation Commission to join us because a couple of our public hearings are going to be held in conjunction with the Concom. Elijah or Amanda, it looks like there's something in the Q&A. Oh, maybe that's been resolved because it looks like we have Desna with us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Yes.
you.
Okay.
All right, welcome.
I think we have everyone.
Chair Weller,
Yes.
is this the complement of your board? Yes, I think so.
Thank
All right,
you.
then
Yes.
you're welcome to call your meeting to order.
Excellent. The September 24th, 2024 Westwood Conservation Commission meeting is now called to order. Let's do a roll call. Todd Sullivan,
Here.
Deborah O'Day. Could not hear you. Vesna Maniva.
Here.
Mike Walsh.
Here.
Steve Hart.
Here.
I'm Grace Weller. Deborah, can you hear us? Can you speak? No. Okay, Deborah O'Day is present and will work on fixing her microphone. But we do have a quorum, so our meeting is called to order.
Do you see me?
And
This is Elias.
Elias Ferris as well.
Yes, here.
We can see you.
Okay.
Wonderful. Welcome. All right. Then our first agenda item is 637 High Street. Public hearing for the consideration of an environmental impact and design review approval for the proposed new Fire Station 1 at 637 High Street to be immediately continued to 10/15/2024 to allow additional time for review of proposed plans. As we are opening the hearing, I will read a portion of the legal notice. The Westwood Planning Board will hold a remote public hearing on Tuesday, September 24th, 2024 at 7 p.m. via Zoom regarding an application filed by the town of Westwood for consideration of environmental impact and design review approval pursuant to section 7.3 of the Westwood zoning bylaw for the purposes of demolishing the existing Fire Station 1 and building a new 35,833 gross square foot station, including but not limited to apparatus bays, offices, conference and training areas, decontamination areas, triage area, maintenance bay, utility spaces, dormitories, kitchen, dining and living areas, restrooms, laundry facilities, and fitness room with associated exterior lighting, landscaping, utilities, drainage, mechanical equipment, generator, and on-site parking at 637 High Street, Westwood, Mass. 02090, in accordance with PB-24-43. The property is in the single residence C SRC zoning district and within upper story residential overlay district, USROD, wireless communications overlay district, WCOD, and water resource overlay protection district, WRPOD. Land affected, assessors map 14, lot 046. Property owner is the town of Westwood. Okay. Oh, Phil, welcome. We have Phil Giordano with us as well, another planning board.
Apologies, I'm here.
No worries. Glad to have you. Okay, so now that I've officially opened the hearing, I believe we need a motion to immediately continue this hearing.
Correct.
Thank you.
Just give me 1 second.
Elijah, I
thing.
think I have it.
Okay,
Fabulous.
Okay, I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for the EIDR public hearing for the new Fire Station 1 at 637 High Street as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on August 22nd, 2024 to Tuesday, October 15th, 2024 at 7 p.m. via Zoom, where a Zoom link and associated call-in numbers will be provided on the town's calendar on the homepage at https://www.townhall.westwood.ma.us/.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, before I take roll call, Elijah, procedural question. Do I call the roll for both boards or would Chair Weller have to call the roll for her board?
the chair would call the roll for her.
For her board, okay. All right, then I will take a roll call vote for the planning board. Kate,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Our public hearing is continued.
The Conservation Commission will now open the public hearing for 637 High Street, a stormwater land disturbance. We will be continuing this hearing as well. Do I hear a motion to continue 637 High Street to October 15th, 2024 at 7 p.m. as a Zoom meeting concurrent with the planning board?
So moved.
And a second?
Aye.
Thank you. Roll call. Todd,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Vesna. Okay, visual aye from Vesna.
Aye.
Thank you. Mike,
Yes.
Steve,
Aye.
Elias,
Aye.
aye as well. Motion carries. The meeting for 637 High Street will be held October 15th with the planning board.
Excellent. All right, then our second agenda item is 101 High Street. Continuation of public hearing for consideration of a shared driveway special permit approval for a shared driveway for 5 single-family residences at 101 High Street. This is continued from September 10th, 2024 to allow for a simultaneous meeting with the Concom. So welcome. And do we have representatives from the applicant? Ah, I see one. I see 2.
Hello, everyone.
Good
Good evening.
evening. Welcome. Nice to see you.
Steve's up. We have anybody else from oh, Angela's. Okay, I see it. Thank you.
Excellent.
You
And
have everybody that you need for your presentation, Mr. Zaka? Okay. Sorry, Chair Weller.
I believe so. May I ask a procedural question before we even start? Is there a planning board member missing this evening?
Yes, unforeseen circumstances, but we are missing our fifth member.
Okay, he has not missed a prior meeting, I don't believe, prior hearing on this?
I don't think he has.
Okay, so I would
But-
just request that, you know, he follow the chapter 39 procedures and review the minutes and the video of this and submit the appropriate form so he can continue on this matter.
Absolutely. Elijah, I don't remember him not being here for one of the hearings on this. Does that sound correct?
I don't believe he was absent on any, and we will make sure that he submits the proper forms.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Before you start, though, I think Chair Weller was trying to speak. Might need to take some action.
I just want to clarify the Conservation Commission public hearing for 101 High Street is open as well. So we will be participating in this discussion.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, Mr. Zaka, the floor is now yours.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Peter Zucker. I'm counsel for Supreme Development. Also here is Giorgio Petruzziello, who is the principal and president of Supreme Development. We have from Bowler, Stephen Martirano and Angela Botto. I'm only going to speak very briefly, and this is more on a planning board side than I think the Conservation Commission side. But again, I just want to remind everybody that we're here on an application for a special permit for a shared driveway. We submit the client has the right to a 5-lot A&R endorsement with 5 driveways coming in off of High Street. Instead of doing that, we thought it was better for everybody, the neighborhood, the aesthetics, that the single curb cut on High Street with a shared driveway would serve everybody better. Shared driveways, of course, require a special permit. Specific provisions for that special permit, which we believe we will satisfy, including improving, specifically listed was improving public safety by reducing the number of driveways, especially on a busy road, and also to serve environmental protection. At the end of the day, we believe that the single driveway benefits outweigh its negative impacts, if any. We also have an earth material movement permit that we submitted. Again, I think we would have normally been exempt from that, except for the fact that the slopes will be in excess of 15%. I don't think we looked at reducing them below that, but if we did, it would just basically include a lot more grading and removal of trees in that area. So we have been working, as you know, through peer review. We're not there yet. We believe we're getting there. There have been some design changes that you'll hear about, and therefore the peer reviewer asked some subsequent questions. So having said that, by opening, with your permission, I'd like to turn this over, I think, to Stephen to walk us through where we're at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I have, do I have the ability to share?
Yes.
Hold on, that was a bad share. That's you're gonna see yourself. Let me share the screen with the presentation. Try that one. All right, that probably looks a little bit better. Good. Does everybody see at least the cover slide at this point?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So Steve Martirano with Bowler. I'm a civil engineer. I'm going to walk you through a little bit of history of the project. Peter gave you a great overview of what we're trying to accomplish here. We've had some questions as we've gone forward through the process, so we thought maybe backing up for one moment just to show the progress that we've made, some iterations that we've looked at over the course of the project to date. Get this into full screen and get it working. Yeah, we'll go. So the property, high level, right? So this is the outer perimeter of the property. You can see the existing home in the middle of the property today. High Street down to the south and Grove Street off to the eastern side. Just to get you familiar. This is where we started, and we haven't really talked about this a lot, but this is really a traditional A&R subdivision approach, right? Break up the lots. We all have frontage, traditional driveways for each property going out. This is the starting point through conversations with the town and internally of how could we be less disruptive, more respectful of slopes and access in and off of High Street and the sidewalks on High Street and do we need to have 5 individual driveways, or is there a better approach, which is how we ended up in front of this board here, is said, geez, maybe we can get closer to what's out there today. Maybe we can take a look at the existing driveway location in general and be less impactful, right? It'll be less visible from the road, less in and out movements on and off of High Street, less disruptive sidewalk movements for anybody who might be walking along that sidewalk there. Not a lot different, but a pretty substantial change from our perspective. We think this is the right approach, which put us into the shared driveway scenario, but it doesn't change the development opportunity, and the houses are planning purposes. So we just wanted to give some flavor of how this could look, right? The application, as Peter said, it is really just a driveway tonight, but we wanted to provide some context of why the shared driveway. Why are we looking at this approach rather than the prototypical approach? And we just think it's a little more thoughtful. It's a little more construction work as far as cost of the improvements. We're treating it more like a private road for fire department access, right? They need to be able to get up here and get to each of the individual houses off of this road. So it takes on a little more hefty definition of the shared driveway itself. But again, we think in the grand scheme of things, this is going to be a little less impervious because we're sharing some of the driveway, a little less tree impact because of the way the grading can work out. And those benefits, we think, outweigh the negatives, which is it's a little less private for the future homeowners here, right? They'd each have to share this driveway, and there'll be shared maintenance and other things that are maybe less desirable than a private driveway going out to the street. But in the grand scheme of things, as I said, we think we're trying to think outside of the traditional box and just driveway with house, driveway with house, driveway with house, and how can we be a little more thoughtful? So that's like the background, the high level. How did we get here? So just thought that was where we've gotten a handful of questions of why this versus just the 5 driveways or the A&R approach. So hopefully, if there's any questions on that, I could answer from now, or I'll just go through with the rest of the presentation. And yeah, open to questions at the end too. So this is now getting into the meat, right? This is really what the application is. The application is for this driveway, which is really this portion here. This is the shared driveway. You can see we've got provisions for driveways on each of the lots coming off. We're generally in the location of the existing curb cut. We've tightened up some work on the left side here. Really, that was relative to Conservation Commission 35-foot no touch zone. So we've tightened up some of the grades here, and we're working through some iterations, really trying to compact. And Peter mentioned the slope, the slope cut fill permit that we applied for. It's really to keep those slopes tight, right? We want to minimize the impact, minimize the disturbance here, and really match the existing topography as well as we can. You can, if I zoom in, you can see the existing topography is very steep in places, and we're just really trying to marry into that, which is better than trying to feather it way out. It would be significantly more impactful. So, but again, we're trying to compact the design. We are working through some iterations. I think we have a little more work to do on drainage. The peer reviewer, Mark, had some really good feedback for us to date, and we've got a little work to do some additional test pitting and some making sure these basins are going to be as efficient as possible and meet all the requirements, right? We were required to meet water quality requirements. We also have volume requirements and peak rates of runoff that need to be at or below existing rates to existing discharge points. We're analyzing that. We're working through those details, and we're confident that at the end we'll be able to get a letter supporting that we've achieved those goals and those requirements. So we will get there. We got a little, as I said, we've got a little work to do to refine this, but the main approach is really a couple of basins down at the base, right? Everything is flowing from page right down the hill. We're about a 10% slope through here, and then it's captured at the bottom and a couple of different catch basin points and routed into these basins, which is a little different than the previous approach had a drain collection system along the edge of the driveway. So this is maybe a little more prototypical roadway drainage with catch basins routed to infiltration systems and surface basins. So that's the work, right? It's the shared driveway with the curb cuts for the future, and we'll be back. Obviously, the individual houses will have their own drain systems in addition to these, which is, I think, if you think of like a subdivision, a traditional subdivision, you would do the road first, and then you come back later and do the individual houses, and they have their own roof infiltration system. So very similar approach, not unique, a little bit different that it's called a shared driveway. But we think this is a little more, it's actually a more efficient approach for a project of this size. Another item we were asked to take a look at is what are we impacting for existing trees? And this studies, I'll zoom in a little bit, but you can see we've located individual trees. We've counted those. Let me look at my numbers here. We're between two trees. We have 214 trees, and we're replacing at a 1-to-1. Sorry, I want to make sure. Angela, you might have to make sure I got my numbers right here. It's 236 trees. Sorry, I've got them here. 236 trees will be impacted by the roadway development. And we replace those at a 1-to-1 equivalent, which is 137 new trees will come in, and we'll see that in a second. And actually, you can just jump forward. So that's the tree removal. And then this next one is the tree replacement plan, right? So the new landscaping will include 137 new trees and 411 new shrubs, which the shrubs are counted at a 4-to-1. 4 shrubs equal 1 tree. So the equivalent is 239 equivalent trees are being replaced. So we're meeting the 1-to-1 replacement requirement through a combination of trees and shrubs that will be planted. And you can see here we've started just developing a buffer between the properties here. So you have some more evergreens, and then you've got a variety of trees that line both sides where the road construction is impacting existing trees. And with that's what we had tonight. And then this tree does have species and quantities. I won't read them all off, but there is a table on the plan that was submitted to the board. We also submitted, as Peter said, we had the cut fill materials that were submitted to the board. And then a couple other things that we're working on would just be a little more definition on site distance triangles at the proposed driveway entrance, just to show that the vehicles approaching from on High Street have appropriate stopping distance, which they do, but we need to add a little more definition onto the traffic data that we showed for the triangle. We have the drainage modifications and additional soil testing that we'll be coming back with, and then some easement information. There were some comments in the peer review, and I'm sure you'll hear from your peer reviewer as well. But there were some suggestions on permanent easements, maybe for slopes and other things that will need to be maintained to support the shared driveway. So we think it's been a good process so far, and we think we're getting close to a good solution, and we've got a little bit of work to do, hopefully I understand there's lots of comments and concerns, which is not uncommon relative to drainage, and making sure we get that right. And obviously I'm a professional engineer licensed in the state of Massachusetts. My license says I want to get it right too, probably more than anybody. So we will get there, and hopefully we can satisfy some of the concerns tonight or in subsequent meetings. So thank you. I'll turn the screen back.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, did you have any other folks from the team that were planning to present?
No, I think that's it for now. We'll turn it back to the board.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure. Elijah, did we have any? Oh, actually, I believe we have Mr. Bartlett, our peer reviewer. Welcome.
Good evening, board members, commission members. Would you like me to give a summary, or is it?
That would be wonderful. Sorry, we have a lot more people on screen than we usually do, so it took me a minute to see that you were here. But yes, it would be wonderful to hear some updates from you. Thank you.
Okay, I'd be happy to. As a preface, I will say that I agreed to fill in on this peer review because PSC's owner, Tom Houston, passed away on August 14th. So he was the one that did the initial peer review. I looked at all of his documents, looked at the submittals up until recently, and I also had a nice Zoom call with, Amanda and Elijah were there, but also Steve Macerano and Angela Bato of Bowler. So we had a good discussion of the concerns that I had. I issued a memo dated September 21st. Hopefully the board has that, the commission has that. There were 38 original comments in that memo. Of the 38, there were only 4 that still remained to be partially resolved. So in effect, their response to our initial memo, we had a letter from Bowler of September 4th, which responded pretty effectively to most of the comments, but of the 4 remaining comments, one had to do with just proving where the hydrant tests were located. I couldn't decipher where those hydrant tests are in relation to their 2 proposed hydrants, so they're going to provide that. The total suspended solids removal is important, of course, for protecting the wetlands. And they had a deficiency in terms of the lower pond not showing any pretreatment as necessary. So they're going to deal with that. I believe it's resolvable. On the site distance question, I just raised the question. I think Steve mentioned this, that in addition to showing the site distance lines and how much distance you're providing for site, have a comparable table for the speed limits on High Street. So you know, all right, how good is the site distance in relation to the safe stopping site distance given the speed limits on High Street. So they're going to add that tabular information to their plans. And I believe there was one other issue. It had to do, they have a utility easement, which is appropriate for a shared driveway. so that each homeowner has access to the utilities, water, sewer, and drainage. Well, not drainage, but water and sewer and electric. But there's quite a bit of slope adjustment going on. So we do recommend that they have permanent slope easements that are recorded so that each homeowner knows that that slope is permanent. It's not to be fiddled with, and that they have to accept that as for the stability of the common drive. So those are the 4 partially resolved comments, but in the course of my review, I found 7 issues that really needed to be addressed, and we talked about those yesterday with the engineers. They're on track to address them. One is to show test pits or testing for the 2 basins they're proposing. They had 1 test pit for the lower basin, that's the smaller of the 2, but it indicates the presence of bedrock and high groundwater, and they're digging down into that, and it's just not appropriate. So we discussed that it's not likely to be an infiltration basin, but it could be salvaged perhaps as a detention basin, and perhaps overflowing to the upper basin, which is the larger of the 2 that you see on the plan. So they're looking into that. The larger basin doesn't have any testing at all to back it up for infiltration practices. So the stormwater rules and regs of Westwood require an in situ saturated hydraulic conductivity test. That's a mouthful. It's basically like a borehole test or a test that checks for actual infiltration. It is not a perk test. It's a more sophisticated test than that. And so they've agreed to get after that and to prove that upper basin, the larger of the basins, will be appropriate for infiltration. So that's work to be done in the field. Let's see, I mentioned the pre-treatment upgrade they need to provide. They need to have a double grate catch basin because of the slope coming down to one of the catch basins. A lot of drainage will just fly right by a single catch basin. So they need to have a double unit. And they also need to address control of volume. Their initial submittal didn't look at the control of volume pre-development to post-development. The town requires not only controlling peak flow to be equal to or less than pre-development, but the total volume of discharge has to be equal to the pre-development or less than. And they have to prove that, and that hasn't been done yet. That's basically it. I think that they've got work to do, as they did point out, and I think they can get there, but it's going to require some field work first.
Mhm.
I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. All right. So before I move on to board questions and comments, Elijah and our staff, is there anything you'd like to add?
So we did receive some comments to the application, and I just want to take a second to address some of those comments. Regarding the earth material movement, or the need for it, there has been an application that's been filed and it is currently under review. I did want to note that currently the administrative EMM, or earth material movement approval, is the correct route in pursuant to section 7.1 of the Westwood zoning bylaw. There was a assumption made in a letter that was submitted to us that a stormwater management land disturbance permit is required for the development of the proposed shared driveway. Since the proposed driveway requires the Conservation Commission's consideration of a notice of intent pursuant to the Wetlands Protection Act and local wetlands bylaw, no separate land disturbance permit is required. The proposed shared driveway is intended to provide an alternate means of access for the 5 proposed house lots. As the applicant had mentioned before, typically, if all lots are under common ownership, the owner could, at their expense, create the 5 driveway outlets onto the street. This approach is to make a more less impactful design to that area. The proposed shared driveway doesn't circumvent the subdivision control law, and it's actually an opportunity for the improved traffic safety and preservation of existing vegetation along High Street. The planning board, if the planning board decides not to grant the requested special permit, the applicant can regrade the site to individual driveways as previously mentioned. So again, this is an approach that we're all working on to make sure that it is the most beneficial to the neighborhood. And so finally, the subject property was developed under if the subject property was developed under a definitive subdivision plan rather than an A&R plan, the planning board would limit its review to the creation of the subdivision roadway, utilities, and apparatus, and would not review the proposed development of individual single-family house lots. However, in both cases, the development of individual houses will be subject to administrative EMM approvals for each of those lots and a review by the Conservation Commission under the Wetlands Protection Act and local wetlands bylaw or stormwater management as appropriate for each of those 5 lots. So again, this is the first part of a process that will allow public input and showing of how the town is moving in a direction to make sure that this project, if approved or if coming to a decision, is one that takes the most into consideration.
Thank you. Were there any other staff comments or insights to share? Like no. All right, then at this time, I will happily open up the floor to board member questions and comments. And I think given the nature of this discussion, it makes sense to take board member questions and comments from both boards kind of in conjunction. So
yes, thank you.
Sure. If any board members have questions or comments, please raise your hand. I will happily recognize you. Kate.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to, this is early days in this. I wanted to say that I appreciate
Kate, I think you froze, unless that's just for me.
No, I think she's glitched. I think she's frozen.
Froze for me too.
Oh, sorry.
No
Okay.
worries. You're back. I don't want to miss
Okay.
what you said.
My internet connection is unstable, so apologies. I just appreciate the approach and, appreciate that it improves safety is my, where I'm coming from, the lens I'm looking through, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Phil, I thought I saw your hand up.
Yep. I have a number of questions. And perhaps either Stephen or Mr. Zaka did you consider, because the 5 shared driveways, when I look at the standard to improve public safety, did you consider an alternative of a 2 curb cuts with a 2 shared driveway and a 3 shared driveway, or some other alternative than the 5? And I get what you're saying, but if the standard by which we're going by is to improve public safety, I'm curious to know what else you looked at as the alternatives to the 5.
I can take that, and Angela, if you have anything to add, feel free. Peter as well. When we're looking at the driveway location, obviously the current driveway location was selected for a reason.
Mhm.
It is a pretty good place. It's clear of the wetlands. it's in the buffer zone, but clear of the actual wetland areas. The slopes work pretty well coming in there. I get they're a little bit steeper than some driveways, but they work pretty well. They're, you know, fire code level slopes, and everything works pretty simple to have a straight shot up the hill. The other alternate location would be far to the east. It's starting to get a little close to Grove Street where you'd come in, because you'd want to be right in that corner. We didn't think that was as ideal of a spot to come in, and then to get to some of the lots, or to get to the second lot, you'd have to kind of go up and over a hill. So it's something we looked at early. We didn't fully draw it or detail it, because we thought this location, it makes a lot of sense, and there's a reason they picked it from the get-go. Happy to sketch one of the other ones, but I think this is the most efficient way to do it, rather than multiple curb cuts.
Okay, I'm not saying multiple, like 5 curb cuts.
No, two.
I guess, and I was looking, you know, the peer review is saying the increase on the radius for fire, because I was thinking fire apparatus is partly where I was coming from, and I see, you know, how the peer review says that has been resolved, but it struck me, and I'm not an engineer, but it struck me as it would probably be safer to have that second curb cut as compared to doing it the way the 5 are structured, and having a differing opportunity for the fire apparatus to get in there might make some of these turns and corners, which appear to me to be awfully tight and difficult for someone to do. Correct me, you're an engineer, I'm not, tell me I'm wrong.
Well, we did meet with the fire department. We did make some adjustments to the alignment based on their comments, and we did get it to satisfactory to them to get their apparatus in all the way up to past all 5 driveway connections, and we've created an ability for them to turn around at the end. So they do have good access to each of the buildings, satisfactory to their needs to fight a fire should one occur. So I think it's probably more efficient for the fire department to have one access point that gets to all 5 houses, rather than this one goes to these 2, this one goes to those 3. But they did not have a concern from a fire safety, and it's NFPA standard roadway conditions that we're creating for them, which is what gave them the comfort based on slopes and ability to turn around and get to the houses.
I guess the point I'm looking at is the comparison 5 curb cuts or compared to 1, or 2 curb cuts compared to 1, because and I didn't see anything that gave me that comfort to say, okay, they did look at because again, the standard under section 6.1.29 requires us to look at the improvement of public safety, and I didn't see anything that I could rest myself upon to see that alternative had been considered, which might be a better alternative, and not necessarily saying the 5 is the solution, but a 2, or I don't know if a 3 makes sense, but a 2 struck me as something that I was missing.
Yeah, Giorgio, I don't know if you have anything to say there, because you know this property better than any of us. If you have any.
Steve, you hit it right. In the beginning, we did look at that. In the beginning, we did have 5 separate driveways, and we thought about breaking off. I don't know the lot numbers off the top of my head, from right to left, breaking off the 2 on the right, and then breaking off the 3 on the left.
That's what I actually was. When I was looking, that's exactly what I was envisioning. And I'm saying to myself, why is that not safer?
Because in the beginning, when we first looked at it, the topography and the amount of blasting that we would have to do to get up that, I think it's about an 18-foot drop.
Okay.
Where the house is on the road. I don't have the exact numbers, but the cubic yards of rock that we'd have to blast to get to that second lot really wasn't worth. Remember, a blast, let's say it's 12 feet. It's actually 16 or 18 feet. It's always bigger.
Mm-hmm.
It's a large amount of blasting to get to those 2. So that's why we went with the alternative.
So you have a gentler pitch by going essentially all the way to the left, as compared to having the sharper pitch, which also has the increased cost of greater blasting, obviously the impact of blasting, etc. But don't necessarily have the public safety angle as saying that comfort for us to be able to say that is still within the range of safe or improvement of public safety.
Yes, and also just, Mr. Giordano, just to remember, if you're looking at it from across the street, you
Yep.
would have created a cave to go up to each single driveway. So we tried to avoid, we wanted to really to avoid that and keep the aesthetic of when you're pulling into Westfield, that all that green space.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I get that. I'm not talking 5. I was looking at 2.
Yeah.
That blast would have been so big in that section, it would have
Mhm.
created like a big cliffside on each side to get through it.
Madam Chair, if I may, and
Yes.
Go ahead.
thank you, Amanda, for sharing the map. To fill Mr. Giordano's point, I can reach back out to the fire department and ask them to make another comment in relation to this application. But yeah, again, to the applicant's point, reducing the amount of blasting will help reduce the impact to the neighbors.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, if you could just, I just, like I say, to me, and I just was saying some of these, and obviously the fire department knows and I don't, but it struck me as awfully tight to be able, when you have an emergency situation, is something to be addressed.
And we're happy to provide, sorry to interrupt, we're happy to provide the turning diagrams with the fire truck on them, just for the record. We provided them already to the fire department, so happy to submit those as well.
Mm-hmm. And anybody can respond. Can you just give me your sense as to, obviously we've read some of the submissions from the abutters and council. What would you say as to why this should not be looked at? Why should it be done in a sequential manner as compared to where they say the holistic overall approach as compared to sequential? What's your response to that? Anyone?
I'll respond to
Go
that.
ahead.
Because it's if it was I guess I looked at it from a subdivision perspective, even a straight Form A perspective. In this particular case, we have applied for a special permit. I don't believe the fact that we applied for a special permit opens up the window of opportunity just to go as far down the field as you want to, when you start looking at, the location of the houses, for instance. And I'm just making up an example. So I think that clearly the board can look at the impact of the road of the driveway that we're proposing, but there is, to say in order to proceed, you have to design every house, every driveway, every location. Just isn't practical, nor is it done in any other system, including the big one, which is if this was a full-blown subdivision. If it's a full-blown subdivision, the board would concentrate on the roadway, the layout, the safety of the roadway, the utilities, just as they would be doing here.
So you're saying that it's much ado about nothing, or I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Mr. Zaka, because obviously they made some submissions which piqued my interest, and I'm curious as to, is there any benefit to, I mean, obviously you get to do things in a sequence and deal with the costs and deal with each house, etc. But they're saying there's an effort to circumvent the subdivision control law, and I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I'm looking for how you respond to them.
Well, we respond. It's clearly not circumventing the subdivision control law, because the bylaw itself provides for shared driveway. We first showed that we had an A&R plan with 5 lots and 5 driveways. We have the alternative of saying, because we believe it's better and meets your special permit requirements, that the shared driveway as the alternative is a better way to go, but it is not a subdivision road. It does not, I mean, the whole purpose of the subdivision control law is to make sure that, there is safe access, if you will, off of a street. If there is no street there, then you introduce the street. Here, we're introducing a shared driveway. The street is still and does remain a high street. So it does not open up, in fact, I don't know any provision in any bylaw where you would get into the minutia of, locating houses and again, design every driveway at this juncture. The sequencing is actually set up for us as opposed to picked by the applicant. Here, we happen to be doing the special permit because we are required to have the special permit approved before you can approve the subdivision, the Form A off of using the shared driveway. So that sequence was put there. But to, look at, we understand, I don't want to lose fact that we understand that every time that there is construction in a residential neighborhood, it changes the residential neighbor, what the neighbors are looking at. We understand the neighbors have concern. We've heard their concerns about the amount of blasting. We've heard their concerns about, how much additional water, if any, and we believe there'll be none, if not reduced, would be going into the existing wetland, which is already impacting their houses. All of those items are being addressed through this process, meaning the combined process with the planning board and the conservation commission. So we're not saying that the concerns aren't real, but they're the same concerns. In fact, they're probably getting a little more review, I believe, because we're doing the shared driveway than if we had just gone in and tried to do 5 driveways, because you'd have one application. So I think this is a benefit in terms of the review process because it gives the opportunity, I think, to look at a lot of things at the same time, and then again gives a second opportunity to review when we come in for the individual houses.
I guess part of the point is this is a unique situation with a 5 shared driveways compared to a 2 or 3, and that's I guess part of the concern. Okay, I appreciate the responses. Mr. Bartlett, just quick question. You said 7 additional concerns separate from what it was identified in the follow-up letter. I only wrote down 5. Could you just quick bullets, and I just wanted to make sure I got them all because I might have missed 2.
Yeah, sure. They're listed, Mr. Giordano, in the last 2 pages of my September 24th memo.
Okay, so these are not different than what I have your memo and I've read that. These are not different from that.
Exactly. These are 39 through 45 of the items in that memo.
I already have those. I just wanted to make sure that there was no additional ones. Okay.
Yep.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I recognize Sean, some of what Phil was talking about reminded me that I think planning board at a previous meeting had kind of talked about maybe doing a site visit. I'm thinking about, when you're talking about if we were to blast to do that, it would look like, that part of the Mass Pike where they blasted through all that. Yeah. So, and I can read the topographical map, but I still think it would be helpful for me, especially maybe for all of us, to kind of, if we can do that, I would still I'm interested in doing a site visit because I think it would be helpful to be able to see that lot in person. I think it might help some of our conversations and just kind of steer our process a little bit, really being able to see. So if that's still an option, I'd love to get a date for that. Just throwing that in there. And then I know because it was pertinent to Phil's comments, but Sean, I see you patiently had your hand up.
And Ellen, I support that as well. Before I get to my comments, I want to let town staff respond to what you just said.
Yes, so in regards to the site visit, I can work with the applicant team and see if we can get out there between now and the next 3 weeks.
Thank you.
Am I okay to start my questions, Madam Chair?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I'll try to be quick with these with respect to everyone's time on this call, but Phil's questions were prompting questions for me as well, given we're getting sort of one opinion from the applicant's counsel on that question of whether this subverts the intent of the subdivision control law. And we're getting separate information and some of the public comment provided by some of the abutters and their partners. And I want to make sure we do right by this. I do think this one route as opposed to 5 feels like the right approach to me, but maybe this is a question for our town staff. Has town council provided any opinion on those questions of whether the shared driveway approach subverts or does not subvert the intent of the subdivision control law?
Yeah, so we did not get town council consideration. However, we do know that as proposed, it does fall in line with the town's bylaws. The special permit is the route that it would take for, section 6 of the town bylaw for a shared driveway. And again, if there was a subdivision application, it would be regardless, it wouldn't be looking at 5 individual lots. It would be looking at a roadway and its necessary maintenance and apparatus. So even in this shared driveway, our approach as town staff is that ensuring, based on our peer review, that we have the proper conditions in place to make sure that if the board were to get to some point, that this will be a project that has the least negative impacts on the area.
Okay. So, and to clarify on that, even if this were to come under the subdivision control, our town staff's view is that we wouldn't be getting into all the parts of the subdivision rules around placement of lots and kind of natural features. It'd be much more limited to really just the roadway, and the conversation would look very much similar to the conversations we're having about the shared driveway. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So to provide further clarification, subdivision control law was updated, and I want to say the early 2000s, exactly getting at this, where they clarified only the road itself is under the purview, because it was something that in practice it was expanding into looking at the individual properties, which wouldn't be appropriate under state law. So the shared driveway is giving us a safer option in terms of impacting, people coming in and out. But if they didn't do a shared driveway, it still wouldn't be a subdivision because they'd be coming out onto High Street.
Okay, understood. That's helpful. I think separately on that note, does town staff have any opinion on that question of precedent that was raised in some of the letters we received? For example, the precedent around how many buildable lots this shared driveway concerns, in this case 5, as opposed to say 2 or 3.
Well, as long as the lots under common ownership allow for, the zoning per the district, which is the single residence E district, as long as they have the correct acreage and frontage, then they are allowed to pursue single family homes.
Okay. And then 2 other questions on different veins, if everyone will humor me for a moment. This might be for Mr. Bartlett as well. From a stormwater perspective, ought we be concerned with the impact on the wetlands and the natural environment of a shared driveway that discharges into a wetlands kind of basin versus into the street via separate driveways, and any impacts on those who are downstream of those wetlands or abutting those wetlands?
Well, it's it's certainly a valid question. if you had 5 separate driveways, there's a good chance those driveways would drain. In other words, if you had 5 Form A lots, those driveways would drain right to High Street. It would put a little more strain, or put a lot more strain on the town's drainage system. This particular design, if it's executed properly, should result in no net change of flow, both peak flow and volume, to the wetland, or to High Street for that matter. It should be a better approach than having 5 separate driveways. I'm talking hydrology wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have more opportunity to control and manage the stormwater with this approach than you would with 5 single-family homes.
That's helpful. And would there ever be any kinds of performance guarantees in place around that, that the board could reasonably condition, or would that be outside of our purview? I'm concerned because I hear the concern from the abutters, and I just want to make sure we do this right. But I also recognize, Mr. Bartlett, your review is very helpful, and I appreciated the comments that you've provided and that Mr. Houston provided throughout the peer review process as well. And I think it's driving towards something good. So
well,
back to the question.
To answer your question, I think you can have controls. You could have a homeowners association for these 5 homeowners sharing the driveway. They have a common interest, number one, because of the driveway. They have to take care of it themselves. They have to plow it, and they have to maintain it. So those homeowners should be responsible for maintaining the stormwater system as well. There's an O&M plan that's in the proposed stormwater report. I looked at it. It looks appropriate. They need to, take care of the stormwater treatment systems that are going to be instituted here. And they'll probably have 2 different systems, but it'll be the homeowners association responsibility. So therefore, to answer your question, you could hold them accountable. Both you and the commission, for that matter, should hold them accountable.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
That does answer my question. That's helpful, and it may be asked town staff to give some consideration possible to whether that affects any of the approach to the special permit process, because I think that makes sense to me, if that's not something we've already contemplated, and maybe we have. Final question, which is more on a safety standpoint, and it just harkens back to something I think I raised in one of the previous conversations on this. Mail delivery and mail delivery off of that kind of 5-person shared driveway. I'm only concerned because it's High Street, and I know it can back up with traffic quickly. And I would imagine it might take a little bit more time for mail delivery person to fill 5 mailboxes versus 1. And as of right now, I think that the mail delivery trucks somewhat obstruct High Street, or at least the curb, when they're delivering mail. I can't remember the exact conversation on this, but has the applicant's team given any consideration to either safety or traffic concerns around that, and how to mitigate that?
I can answer that. So we fortunately were out there when the mailman, I think actually, Mr. Wheeler, we spoke about this last time.
Yeah.
And we did create almost an area where he can pull in completely off High Street, where he can deliver the mail. Also with Amazon and UPS and all that, they can completely pull off the road.
Okay. Okay, thanks. That addresses my question. Thank you.
Mr. Wheeler, if I may, can I just jump in for 1 second? This issue of circumventing the subdivision. One thing I've never been good on is quoting cases and remembering it's Smith v. Jones, and even at my advanced age, I look back. But there is and I will submit it to Elijah. There is an actual case. I want to say, don't hold me to this, Fox, and I think it's involved the town of Milton. But there's a case that has a line right in it. It's a case where I think it was 4. I think it was only 4. I don't think it was 5, but 4 lots that would have a shared driveway. And the court basically in that said that the common drive driveway is not relevant in determining whether or not, the issue is whether or not this is a subdivision or not. And if it's a subdivision and you're trying to do something else, I guess you'd be circumventing it. But there's a case, and I will submit it once I find it. But I am 100% certain that there is a case that has a line in it that I think it was 4 shared driveways, and the court said the fact that there is a shared driveway is not relevant to the determination as to whether or not this is if it shows the subdivision. If it's 5 lots, they have frontage on High Street, et cetera, et cetera. So I will submit that to Elijah. He can distribute to the board. You can go wherever you want with it, but I know there is a case right on.
And I just wanted to say, I would appreciate that, because when I saw, obviously, the submissions, you didn't have a chance to respond to them, but I do want to just have some comfort from your side.
Sure. Thanks.
And thank you, Mr. Zock. I appreciate that. That will be very helpful.
Yes, thank you. I think we'd all be interested in seeing that. Thank you, Sean. Grace, I thought I saw your hand up. Did you still have a question?
While we were on the topic of application procedure, I wanted to hear if town council had weighed in on the comments that we were receiving from abutters. We're really focusing on the holistic approach as considering the driveway and the future construction projects as a single application. I know we're doing a notice of intent for Concom, but the fact that there will be more work done on site, since we're considering it now, we'll be considering again in the future. I know some of the abutters were concerned about that. Has town council or town staff made any comment on that?
Yeah, so Madam Chair, if I may, so we have not approached town council on this. However, we are certain that this does follow the right procedure as it relates to applying for the special permit and the subsequent A&R if a special permit is granted, and that there is no circumvention, and that either way this actually adds for more oversight in the creation of those 5 lots as opposed to a subdivision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Steve.
I just have one question, maybe for Stephen. The drainage report mentions that the proposed project will decrease the amount of impervious area on site. I don't know if you'd be able to walk me through that. I couldn't see how that was from the plan, but maybe I'm misinterpreting that.
Yeah, I think when you look at it from just this driveway perspective, we're only looking at the proposed driveway now. And when you take away the existing house and the impervious area around the existing house, it will actually be a slight decrease in impervious to build just the shared driveway. Right? And then we will have an ultimate increase when you develop each of the individual lots. But we'll do additional mitigation for those increases when and if each of those lots gets developed. Does that answer the question?
Gotcha. So the proposed shared driveway includes, as part of the same project, is removal of the existing house lot driveway. Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Vesna?
I also have a question for Steve. So similar to Stephen, my concern is the system that you're proposing for drainage, which is located at the low point of the site, is that designed to also take into consideration all the new driveways that are going to be connecting to this shared driveway?
Great question. Yes, but not entirely. There's pieces of the proposed driveways, really those lots that are closest to the basins, and maybe the beginnings of driveways that will end up into the shared driveway will be picked up in the drain system, and those are being accounted for in the design. The driveways are relatively long, so there's a significant portion that will be outside of the watershed that gets to the basins. And that's when we do the development plans for the the houses and the proposed driveways, there will be additional stormwater to again, make sure we're meeting the town requirements and treatment and quantity. But so it takes care of some of the driveway runoff, but there will be additional drainage done with each development lot.
Okay, so and then another question they have, I know you showed a landscape plan that was very dense, and the concern that I have is, usually we have a snowstorm and you need to pile the snow somewhere, and your landscaping will suffer if you're gonna, populate all the way to the curb with shrubs and trees. And so how are you resolving the snow storage?
I will have a landscape architect with me at the next meeting that is very happy to talk about the species selections and ability to handle any snow plowing in there. We have looked at it. We do have some areas identified, but I think your question's a good one. So we'll make sure we've allowed space for that and species that will not get destroyed during the snowplow season. So we'll come back with more information on that. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any other questions or comments from board members? Yes, Deborah.
So similarly, along similar lines related to the landscape plan, I'm a little bit puzzled by the large grouping of trees that's on the border between what I would call lot 3 and 4. Can you explain, I understand that that's within the area of disturbance, and there's been some discussion about maybe we should be looking at this holistically, but it strikes me that there's a lot of new trees that you're planting there that really should be considered as part of the landscaping plan for those two lots 3 and 4. And it seems like there's a lot of trees being taken down, and you're trying to cram a lot of trees back in to get to that 1-to-1 ratio. I don't quite understand why a big chunk of those trees are being like solved for in the actual lot. So can you explain that rationale a little bit?
Sure. And is it okay for me to share the screen just so we can see that plan?
I think that would be helpful. Yeah.
Okay, sure. So you're questioning
Yes.
These trees here.
Yeah.
If I click back, so we thought that was we thought that as a positive, not just creating the buffer, but if you look today, I mean, there's no mature vegetation in this zone existing. We are not intending to put buildings or driveways in that zone. So we wanted to take the opportunity to put in some more mature trees that have the ability to grow up and provide those canopies over time. So we thought that was a real positive, and it wasn't just the screen, because they really are. Oops, went the wrong way. They really are meant to be mature growth trees, right? So there probably is more landscaping coming in that creates that understory and the rail buffer between the houses. But this was really where's our best opportunity to get large trees to have enough space to grow and create that canopy over time. So that was the thinking, because some of the other ones on the edge conditions, right, there's some more slopes in here that we're dealing with, and they're probably not as conducive for the mature trees to grow up. And some of them are to get those real hardy canopy trees. So we're a little more relying on the shrubs in those zones, and then again we're distributing some trees in there, but this seemed like a really nice opportunity where there's really nothing today to bring something in. And again, bring somebody who's better versed in the specific species that we're selecting in those zones to talk through those details next time.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like I'm all for planting more trees. I think this gets to the points that have been raised previously around, are we looking at this holistically? And that's great that you're filling in that open space, but I think part of my fear, at least, is when we get to talking about the individual lots and the clearing that will be associated with each of those lots, you're going to need to replant a lot of trees, for example, on lots 3 and 4. And you're going to need a lot more space, which you're already kind of borrowing to make up for what the trees, the 200 plus trees that you're taking down just to build the driveway.
Got it. Yeah, thank you. Well, let me look at that with our team, and we'll provide some feedback for the next hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to Elijah, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
I just wanted to comment, again, this viewpoint is to focus on the shared driveway, and if this were to be approved, there would be an opportunity for each individual lot to be reviewed for any potential clearing or stormwater mitigation at a later date, but this specifically just for scope is for the shared driveway.
Thank you. Elias, yes.
Hi, how you doing? He basically took my question out of contest, but I still gonna ask the question. The cutting the tree, 236 trees, this only accomplished the construction of the shared driveway. But the project is a lot bigger, and I think the Conservation Commission should get a total of the tree which is going to be removed to build these long driveway, to build the individual houses, which I assume they're going to be very big size houses, and see if there's a plan how this going to be replaced, I mean, at least get a schematic or an idea. And if this doesn't work, then the shared driveway, it will not work for the project, This is just for the Conservation Commission. My second suggestion is for the planning. That shared driveway, I like it. It looks very good. But I want to ask the designer, can that hammerhead at the end of the driveway be changed to a cul-de-sac, which would be a lot more friendly for the fire trucks and for delivery trucks to turn around? That's the two questions I have.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody from the applicant team wanted to respond to the question about the change that Elias proposed.
I can answer that. We've met with the fire department to make sure it works for their trucks, which are the biggest trucks we would expect to see on this road. Usually we're looking at this type of turnaround as an alternative to reduce the impacts from the full cul-de-sac. It's such a low volume use here. It really doesn't warrant that much disturbance because the cul-de-sac is probably more than double the area that the hammerhead, we call this a hammerhead turnaround, takes. So this is purely a strategy we use on low volume driveway situations. We work with the fire department often on these type of situations, and it really is to reduce the amount of impervious, which is reasonable in this low volume scenario. So there's enough room, like I offered before. We'll provide those truck turning radius to show how a fire truck will maneuver down here, which would be the same for a delivery truck or Amazon vehicle or the pizza delivery person. They'll all have the ability to turn around in the same fashion, obviously easier than the fire truck.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Grace?
Going off of that, I want to clarify, do you have any proposed ideas of the limit of work that would be required for the 5 construction projects? Do you have a square footage estimate?
For the single family home developments?
Yes, I'm just thinking the eventual landscaping plan? I know it's down the road.
I do not. I think we've put the buildings on for just context, but that's as far as that design has been advanced. So we don't have
Okay.
grading.
And then I know you said you'll bring.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. Okay. I'm wondering about the scope of that and any future tree removals and, planting mitigation plans that will be required and how that may overlap with the present work. I also want to clarify, we do have different mitigation requirements based on the type of jurisdiction. So any trees removed within the 100-foot buffer have a different replacement ratio. I want to make sure that that's been covered. I didn't see that specifically called out on the landscaping plan.
I'm gonna say yes, and I'm gonna look at Angela to nod and confirm.
Yeah, Angela from Bowler here. So in the 100-foot buffer, just pulling up those numbers, there was 22 trees that were removed. So we proposed the 2-to-1 mitigation for the 44 required trees there. And then outside of the 100-foot buffer, there was 214 trees. And we looked at that for the 1 tree per 400 square feet of disturbance or the 1-to-1. So we ended up with 172 trees there for the total required of 216.
Okay, and that's in that little bolded table. Is that what you're looking at?
That was in the plant and tree removal guidelines.
Okay, I'm opening that up. Okay. And then I also want to clarify, so we do call out for any trees removed for a land disturbance permit. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, which you have, but it's also with respect for diameter of breast height. So do you have a count of the trees that will be removed that are larger than 12 inches diameter breast height?
We do not, I don't have that number right now, but we can get that for you.
Okay, I would appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay, and then I wanted to echo what Deborah was saying about the tree planting between lots 3 and 4 as she was referring to it. I just want to clarify that that is going to also be included in a future limit of work for the construction projects. That same area will be included. Is that right?
I would say it could be. But obviously we're not planting the trees with the intention of taking them out right after we plant them.
Right.
So the intention is for it not to be, but it could be if for some reason it needed to be. And then we'd have to mitigate for the removal of the new trees or relocation of the new trees.
Okay. If that is ever a consideration, do you have a timeline of when the plant mitigation, the planting plan, and then the new construction projects would take place? Are we talking about a long time frame?
I think we have to get through this process first, and then figure out once that is complete, then figure out what the construction timeline is for the road. And I would assume the next planting season after the majority of the road is constructed is when you would do the planting. So I think most of the road construction and the drain construction for the shared driveway would be completed before you do the planting. So whatever season that lands in would be the planting season.
Okay, but then the construction of the houses would be later. It would not happen at the same time as the road construction.
I think it could, depending on how that approval process goes, and if there's, like, I guess, a potential buyer for a lot could expedite those individual lots. I'm not sure. I think the plan is to try to get some clarity on the access and the roadway and get closer to an approval on the driveway itself before we even look at any of those lots. So I would say timing's unclear. I'm sure Giorgio would like to build them as soon as possible, but we have to let the process go through with the process.
Understood. Giorgio, did you have anything to clarify on that? Could you give me a vague estimate, maybe?
I see what you're saying. I think the best case scenario is you put the road in, you put, all the infrastructure in, the catch basins, the whole 9 yards, the stormwater management. And then at that point, we'd have to see where we are with the first or the second house, then to make a decision with the town and working with Elijah and working with the Conservation Commission. Say, all right, is this the right time to plant? Is this the right season to plant? Is this the right, the whole, I think it's not just a timeline. It's really where the actual construction and the season is at the time of we decide to do the planting. So it's really working together with all three of us to figure that part of it out. I mean, if we can do it all at once, ideal, but it's hard to say, yeah, it's going to be done on May 1st or 2025. It's hard to give that exact date at this point.
Okay, but it's possible that the shared driveway would be constructed, there would be some time passed, and then the houses would be constructed either all at once or separately over a period of time?
So we wouldn't do all 5 at once. We would probably do 1 to 2 at a time.
Okay, thank you, that helps. Elias?
I'm all set.
All right. Deborah.
So I just want to pick up where Grace is going. One of the things that strikes me again about that plot of trees in between lot 3 and 4 is that it is very close to one of the houses, the house for lot 3. So I have some concerns about that patch of trees, the longevity of that trees, and it potentially then being disturbed again when they try to construct lot 3. So that's just something else to add there. The other thing that I just want to bring up so that it's on this combined board's radar screen, we had some discussion at our last Concom hearing about lot number 1, the one at the far left of the plot of land. It is significantly within the 35-foot buffer and the 100-foot buffer zone, including the access driveway that would need to go all the way to the back of the lot for the house. And given the conversation that we're having around replacement trees and the ratio that would be required within the buffer zone, I have significant concerns about the viability of that as a buildable lot. In addition, those trees that are currently there serve a very important purpose when we're talking about stormwater management. And so disturbing them, I think, exacerbates some of the challenges with this plot of land. So I just wanted to raise that for the board's consideration, both boards, and see if the applicant has any response to that.
I'll start, and anybody else can chime in on the development side. So I think one modification we did make is we have pulled that disturbance out of the 35-foot. So the driveway is now it's still within 100-foot buffer, but it is outside of the 35, which we heard loud and clear was an important design adjustment, and that's been made. As far as the tree cutting and stormwater, yes, that's always something we're looking for. We model the different surface characteristics between what exists today, a wooded condition versus whether it's a lawn condition or a driveway or new shrubs, new planting zones. They all have different model numbers that are well established. And so we do account for the change in surface type. We are following the state's stormwater handbook and how to mitigate that. And one of the nice things is with the shared driveway that will have its drain system, and then the individual houses will have roof infiltration systems at each house, which is a strategy that DEP highly recommends because it really spreads the water around to different points rather than bring it all to one single basin. So we're trying to incorporate all those handbook standards of spread it around, no point discharges, infiltration, because that accomplishes a bunch of a bunch of the goals between slowing rates down, reducing volumes of the surface runoff to the wetlands and the receiving water bodies. And it treats it really well. It gets rid of phosphorus and other TSS that's in the stormwater. So we take drainage very seriously. That's probably the number one thing as the civil engineer that we pay attention to and appreciate Mr. Barlow's comments as well to help make sure we're mitigating those surface changes and any other development to make sure we're not impacting anything downstream and we're not impacting the wetlands as well.
Also, can I add to that, Deborah, is that I'm pretty sure if Angela can chime in on this, we did also move the house further away and out of the buffer zone as well. Angela, can you look at that as well?
That's correct. I have it on a drawing here.
So it's not only the driveway, we did also actually move the house as well.
Okay, thank you.
Could you share the drawing again, please?
Sure. This is without the color, so you can see the actual lines a little bit better. But this is more our technical drawing. It's not a color line, but this inside line is the 35-foot buffer line. And then the 100-foot buffer is here, and you can see that the house location has been moved outside the 100-foot. The driveway does meander. It's out of the 100-foot, into the 100-foot, out of the 100-foot, into the 100-foot, but it stays clear of this 35-foot line. So some adjustments to reduce the impacts. They're as far towards the outer edge, and a lot of places we're outside of the 100-foot buffer with the new locations.
Thank you for making those changes. That's much appreciated.
Right.
Thank you. Were there any other questions or comments from board members, either board? I had two quick comments. One, I just wanted to say thank you for being so conscientious with your species list. I think this might be the first time that I've gone through a species list and found all Massachusetts native plants. So well done. And I look forward to hearing from the landscape architect about placement and hardiness and why he chose those specific species or she chose those specific species for the spots that they're considering. I guess my other comment is to kind of piggyback on the discussions we've had about stormwater. I appreciate that, you know, you're doing your due diligence and looking to mitigate the surface changes. But I guess my concern is what I'm hearing and reading is there's an existing problem so that the surface changes may not add to it, but it's not necessarily going to solve for the existing problem. So I'd like to see some ideas about how to not just mitigate what you're going to add, but to kind of improve the current situation. I think that I would find that really valuable. And I know you don't have an answer right now, but just I know we're going to continue this conversation. So I would be looking for that is you know, kind of not just going from the baseline and then mitigating what you're going to change, but maybe some improvements to the situation that's already got a stormwater runoff problem. And that was all I had.
Thank you.
So I'll give it one more second for board member comments or questions. And if there are none further, I would open it up to public participation at this time. I do see Sean. Yes.
One final question it's out of my purview, but it might help the Conservation Commission. And this may be a question for the applicant. Are each of the 5 individual lots likely going to have to come for a land disturbance permit before the Conservation Commission, or will some of these be more likely to come for just an administrative land disturbance review?
To clarify, that's largely a question on square footage.
The square footage of land.
Where we don't, I will say lot A that we just looked at, the driveway and the house location, that will have a notice of intent or an RDA, some filing with the Conservation Commission. So I think that will, if it's a notice of intent, it'll be similar to this process where you wouldn't need the separate stormwater permit. The other ones, we haven't done those calculations yet to see where we are relative to that permit. So I can't really answer that at this time.
Okay, thanks. And I recognize it's not a relevant conversation for this, but it's helpful information in the back of our.
Sure.
I do see Nora's hand up.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to try and answer Sean's question with just a few words about process. So what you're reviewing right now is just the shared driveway. Each lot will be reviewed according to whatever bylaw it falls under. We believe lots A and B will likely require review under the Wetlands Protection Act and the local wetlands bylaw, while lots C, D, and E will likely require review under the stormwater management bylaw. It's one or the other. The way our stormwater management bylaw is written, you don't have to review a property under two different bylaws. If the development, all of the development on an individual lot exceeds 1/2 acre, then it goes to the Conservation Commission for a land disturbance permit, unless it's before the Conservation Commission under the Wetlands Protection Act. If it's between 5,000 square foot of disturbance and 1/2 acre, which I do not expect any of these properties to fall to that low a level of disturbance, but if that were the case, then it would be an administrative land disturbance review by the conservation agent. And then in all cases, we expect the individual lots will require earth material movement approval by the town planner. So there are several steps to go in this. The first one is the planning board's consideration of a special permit for the shared driveway and the Conservation Commission's consideration of a notice of intent for the shared driveway. The next step, if those are granted, is the planning board's endorsement of an A&R plan to create the 5 lots. And after that comes the individual look at each of the individual lots under either the Wetlands Protection Act or the Stormwater Bylaw and under the Earth Material Movement approval. So several steps, they're related, but there is a sequence for them to go through.
Thank you, Nora. That's really helpful. Excuse me. All right. Were there any? Oh, Karen, yes. You're muted, Karen.
Just to elaborate that the applicant had mentioned filing an RDA, and RDA will not cover the stormwater, and that would have to be done under NOI.
Thank you. Were there any other questions or comments from board members before we move on to public participation? All right, not seeing any hands. So at this time, I would open the floor up to public participation. Just a reminder, if you'd like to comment or ask a question, please raise your hand in the attendees list and we will promote you to panelist. We will need your full name and address for the record to be able to take your comments. Or if you would prefer, you can enter your comments in the Q&A part of the Zoom application. And again, we would just need your full name and address. I did see Peggy Cherry has had her hand up for quite some time. So I would like to recognize her first.
All right, she's done.
I hope I said your name correctly. Sorry if I did not.
Peggy, you have to accept it in order for us to have you speak. Are we allowed to? She declines the promote to panelist. I'll try it one more time. I don't know if it was an accident.
Thanks.
There we go. Okay.
Thank you. Looks like we have Peggy in this section. Welcome, Peggy. Yes.
Okay, my name is Ron Cherry. I'm Peggy's husband.
Sorry about that.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Lived at 165 High Street, right next to 109 High Street, for the last 46 years. We have tried in 1993 to replace our three-season porch with a one-car garage. The new addition would have added 3 more feet to the width of the existing structure, along with approximately another 10 feet in length. We spent a good amount of money for the proposed plan, but we were denied a building permit. The conservation came to our house and said that this would have an adverse impact on the wetlands at 101 High Street. We were further away than the one of the proposed houses to be built at 101 High Street. Our plan did not also involve any blasting. Our terrain impacting that 101 is trying to do. That is a mountain of rock and ledge way up over our house. Along the back of our yard, there exists a drainage ditch. That drainage ditch comes from houses and also stormwater for water from 101 High Street as well as other properties. The ditch travels under Route 109 and down to Sandy Valley Road. The water generated from the proposed project could significantly impact this drainage ditch. This water could also impact our basement. The project at 101 is significantly higher than our property, and blasting could have an impact on our house. Also, water from the proposed houses along with the impenetrable driveway could present a large amount of water not only to our house, but also to Route 109. The proposed project would also add significantly to the traffic situation at 109. Directly in front of 109's new additions to 109 have forced 2 lanes converging into 1 lane. Where this occurs, commuters fight and engage with each other, and sometimes we have witnessed road rage. Also, our mail delivery people, as well as our trash and recycling people, have expressed that they are fearful for their safety. We have told the mail drivers that they can come into our driveway if they wish. Instead, the mail people elect to drive over the sidewalk. People behind the mail, trash, and recycling trucks often just pull around them and drive head-on into oncoming traffic from the opposite direction on 109. The proposal at 101 High will add a lot of cars onto 109. Also, trucks and construction equipment could cause a very dangerous situation onto Route 109. We have been subject to significant blasting to all sides of our property. While at times we have been notified of the blasting, there have been times where we were not notified. One particular time, we came home to see people on our property setting up to blast. We were under the assumption that people needed to ask permission to come onto your property. We contacted the fire and the police, but they blasted anyway, as the state fire marshal stated that the dynamite and charges had already been installed, and it was a dangerous situation and they had to set it off. At that blast, we made out better than our neighbor, whose foundation was cracked by the blast. Also, to the rear of our property, one particular property owner has been illegally dumping, filling, and spreading, leveling and changing the grading, adding up to 3 to 4 feet of fill against trees. They did this with no notice to anyone. They did not follow any of the guidelines in the booklet on how to do this. They never asked for permission. After we contacted the town, they said they were monitoring the situation. That was over 2 years ago, and nothing has been done to rectify the situation. I believe this development is becoming a nuisance over the top. Now, I would like to address the shared driveway they are proposing for this new subdivision. I have heard of shared driveways for 2 homes, but never for 5 homes. Where we live, there is no on-street parking. We are able to park about 10 to 15 cars at our home. But when you have special occasions such as holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, 4th of July parties, Labor Day parties, graduation, birthday parties, just to name a few, you need space for more cars. For years, we were lucky that our former neighbors at the horse farm allowed our guests to park cars at their property. At 101 High Street, I would estimate that they might conservatively expect anywhere from an additional 50 to 100 cars. Where will they put that many cars? Will they be parked up and down the shared driveway? Or will they then ask to construct a huge parking lot on site? How will this impact police and fire in case of an emergency? This whole project is crazy. I believe the planning board, as well as the conservation, must look very closely at this so it does not become a nightmare. For over 20 years, I was the keeper of the town pound directly across from our residence. Back then, 109 was really a country road. Today, it is a high-speed 3-lane highway, which we never asked for or were able to vote on. Back when I was keeper of the pound, I would walk across the road with my lawnmower and hand tools and make sure that the town pound looked very good for all the people passing by. There were frequent visits by school groups to visit the town pound. The town pound has great historical significance for the town of Westwood and appears in our town seal. Today, however, people pass by it at a high rate of speed. The commuters jockey for position as 2 lanes converge into one. They honk at each other and often shout out vulgarities. We need to keep Westwood the picturesque town that it once was. Also, I'm very concerned about storm water, and I'll tell you why. This past winter, driving off 109 up onto Fox Hill, I hit a patch of ice and slid backwards down Fox Hill right into 109. I said, how did this happen? And then I found out why. I looked and I saw peoples who have new homes up there have large black hoses dumping water into the street. This is illegal, but it's occurring. So we really need to be very careful about storm water. I will close now, and thank you for letting me say my piece.
Thank you for coming and sharing your concerns with both boards. We really value your insights, so thank you very much. Okay. I see, and again, I'm sorry if I get your name incorrect. Yanni Cepas has his hand raised.
Good evening, everyone. Can folks hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Yanni Cepas, and my wife and kids and I live at 152 Grove Street. We back up to the subject property. That's the subject of the application. As I think both the commission members and the planning board members will see, we submitted a comment letter, so we'll let the letter speak for itself. I did just have a couple of questions actually on the basis of this evening's proceeding. I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a civil engineer, and so my interest was piqued in a couple of matters. I don't know if Stephen or Angela, would you mind putting up the proposed tree planting plan, the replacement tree plan? Because I think that's certainly an area of great interest to my family, to our whole, the whole Grove Street community, which has done a lot to preserve, open space and tree canopy. And so I'd love to just spend a minute with that plan if you'd so oblige. Thank you. Could you zoom in on the sort of I guess the easternmost area? Thank you. So the replacement tree planting plan, actually this will do great for a couple points. The replacement tree plan shows a very dense series of mature tree plantings, basically on all throughout the entire corridor on either side of the proposed shared driveway. I just wanted to point out to the board and to the commission that if you compare this tree planting plan and overlay it with the grading and drainage plan, which is stamped as C401 in the permit set, the cut that's being blasted out of the bedrock that the prior commenter mentioned would be in many cases a 3-to-1 slope, and stamped sheet 601 of the permit set calls for that slope to be loamed with 6 inches of loam and hydroseeded with erosion blankets. And just the notion that you could plant mature trees with root balls, I don't know what the definition of a mature tree is, but a root ball might be, 4, 5, 6 feet round and 3, 4, 5 feet deep. The notion you could plant mature trees on a 3-to-1 slope comprised of bedrock is just frankly calls into question the integrity of the plan that's been submitted, because much of what's shown here vis-a-vis planting, especially on the upslope portion of this, which is literally being blasted out of bedrock and then 6-inch loam and seed with erosion blankets with a 3-to-1 slope, it's just not possible without a tremendous amount of overblasting that then would require the slope to be cut further back. So I would love for the town, for the peer reviewer to take a look at this plan and compare it to the grading and drainage plan, which again, Boulder is stamped at C401 of the application, and just weigh in on the viability of this tree replacement. And again, this is the tree replacement required only for the shared driveway portion of the overall project, which brings me to my second sort of point in question.
Actually, I'm sorry, could we get that question answered? I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, of course.
Is there someone from Boulder who'd like to weigh in on that?
Maybe you could bring up C401 or C601 that shows the condition. C401 shows the grading.
No, I would prefer to answer that question at the next hearing. I'm taking notes here, but I'd rather have one of our professional landscape architects to talk through the specifics of the plantings.
Okay.
But we are aware of the slope. It does show on the grading plan, as Mr. Tipsis has mentioned. So we're aware of the condition.
Okay, thank you. I'll wait for the next hearing on that answer.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. And as I said, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm going to leave this question about circumvention to the lawyers. I think my concern is more about segmentation, and I think this plan also does a terrific job of raising this question of whether the shared driveway can or should be looked at, or should or can be looked at individually, on a standalone basis, versus whether the impacts of this project writ large should be considered holistically, which is what we would prefer the board and the commission to do. And again, looking at this plan, if you see the disturbance area shown in green, sort of that upside down triangle shaped area, there's a stamped plan in the submission package that shows that area as new pervious surface. So essentially the board and the commission are being told, good news, everyone, we're increasing the amount of pervious, we're decreasing the amount of impervious, and we're loaming and seeding that whole area. But literally the next sheet over, sheet 501, or 401 of the same submission package, and this image also shows it, that same area that's being credited as pervious or posited as pervious also includes future house footprints and driveway footprints. And so to have a Massachusetts PE, Stephen, stamp one plan that says good news, it's pervious, and literally the next sheet in a set is stamped showing house lots and driveways, it would seem, that seems disingenuous at best. I think it's improper to segment the impacts in this way and sort of segment out the shared driveway when everybody knows full well that area that's being counted as pervious through the lens of the shared driveway application is actually going to be developed with impervious driveways and house lots. So this, I think, opens an opportunity for both the board and the commission to ask the applicant to look at these impacts holistically, because even the applicant's own application package, has a sort of an internal conflict vis-a-vis, stormwater impact. So that's another, I guess that's a question that I'd love to have addressed this evening. And then again, all the other matters in the letter, I think, will stand alone. And I just close by saying thank you to board members and commissioners for your time, service, and opportunity to comment this evening. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone that could address the question about the impacts?
Yeah, love to. And I think I was clear before that, yeah, yes, it is 100% correct, or we wouldn't have stamped it, that there is a decrease with the plans that are under review from the board right now, which is special permit for the shared driveway. There's a reduction in impervious. We are not hiding the fact that there are buildings coming at some point. They're just not subject to this application. We were asked for context to show the houses. We're trying to do that. We understand there's more work coming, there's more drainage coming, and there will be different results. And we've said that here in this meeting. So I understand the comment and I understand the separation. We're trying to prepare the set of plans that's required for this application relative to what the work is being approved tonight. The future work will be dealt with as we develop those plans. So I get the confusion and the concern of looking at the future build. The plans we're stamping are really for the purposes of the shared driveway. So we're not trying to hide that there's more development coming by any means. And I'm sorry that that's the impression that some folks are getting, but we're trying to follow the process and do what is required at this point in time.
Thank you. My only suggestion would be that the board take into full account the fact that there will be impervious surfaces built over the pervious surfaces shown in the application, and just deduct those from consideration, just as a specific matter. But in general, I continue to suggest that the board and the commission should request a more holistic evaluation, analysis, and appropriate mitigation of all of the project's impacts. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Were there any other folks who would like to, for public participation, that would like to ask a question or share a comment? I'll give it a minute. I'm not seeing any other hands, and I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A either. So if there are no more questions or comments from the public, board members, staff, or anybody, I believe we're going to continue this hearing, so I would entertain a motion.
I can do this one. I, Sean Weller, move that the planning board continue the public hearing for the shared driveway special permit for 101 High Street as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on July 3rd, 2024 to Tuesday, October 15th at 7 p.m. via Zoom, where a Zoom link and associated call-in numbers will be provided on the town's calendar on the homepage at https://www.townhall.westwood.ma.us.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I don't have everyone on my screen, but I'm not seeing any hands. Seeing none, I will take a roll call vote. Sean?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion carries and our hearing is continued. And Chair Weller, I believe you need to entertain a motion on your hearing as well.
Thank you. Yes. The next Conservation Commission meeting is October 9th. However, we do have the option of meeting again joint with the planning board at their next meeting, October 15th, 2024 at 7 p.m. So can I get opinions from the rest of my commission? Would you like to meet again with the planning board in 3 weeks? Is planning
Personally,
board okay with that?
Yeah, I think that would make sense. I found this joint discussion to be helpful, so I would be supportive of that.
I support that too.
Okay, great. And if there's no discussion from planning board on that, the chair will now entertain a motion to continue the hearing for 101 High Street, DEP number 3380767 to October 15th, 2024 at 7 p.m. held via Zoom as a concurrent meeting with the planning board.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you. We'll do a roll call. Todd,
Aye.
Deborah,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Elias. Elias,
Aye.
Vesna,
Aye.
I vote aye. All right, motion carries. We will meet again with the planning board in 3 weeks to continue 101 High Street.
Thank you for your
And
time.
Thank you.
Thank
we
you.
will see you again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I believe that is the second and final item on our joint agenda today. Can I get a motion to adjourn from the Conservation Commission?
So
Nick.
moved.
I second.
Roll call, Mike,
Aye.
Todd,
I clicked accidentally and bumped Todd off, but I'm sorry. I was just trying to pull him back on, but I don't see him.
that's okay. We still have a quorum.
I think you said,
Deborah?
I think you
I'm
said
sorry,
aye on the
my
way
fault.
out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Aye.
Vesna,
Aye.
Elias,
Aye.
aye for me. The Conservation Commission meeting is adjourned. We will meet again in 3 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I think we found this valuable as well, and look forward to continuing our conversations on the 15th.
Great. We will see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Excellent. All right. Sorry, I need to change my screen over. Back to our next agenda item is item number 3, just kind of related to what we were just discussing. Continued consideration of proposed approval not required A&R plan for 101 High Street. This was also continued from September 10th, 2024. And I believe given that these two items are connected, we were going to continue this item to the next meeting as well. So I would entertain a motion.
I, Sean Weller, move that the planning board accept the applicant's waiver of time pursuant to MGL Section 81P of Chapter 41 and continue the approval not required application for 101 High Street dated May 30th, 2024 to Tuesday, October 15th, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Kate?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries and the item is continued. Thank you, applicant team, and we will see you in October.
Great. Thank you very much. You all have a good evening.
Thank you, you as well. All right, our next agenda item is item number 4. Continuation of public hearing for consideration of an environmental impact and design review approval for reconfiguring and restriping the rear portion of the parking lot to allow for 29 additional parking stalls and stormwater drainage improvements at 789 Clapboardtree Street. This project was approved on 8/6/24 with modified plans approved on 9/10/24, and this public hearing will be immediately closed without further action. So that being said, I would entertain a motion.
Might defer to a colleague since I wasn't at the last meeting, but I did sign the Mullen Rule
Thank you.
form.
I move that the planning board close the public hearing for the limited EIDR public hearing for the parking lot expansion at LifeWorks 789 Clapboardtree Street as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on July 2nd, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Phil?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. That public hearing is closed. All right. Before we move on to the next agenda item, I just want to take a quick check-in. Would now be a reasonable time for a bio break, or would people like to continue on?
Madam Chair, you have excellent instincts. I believe that this would be a wonderful time.
Excellent. All right. Elijah, please remind me of the process of how we do this. Do we just have to announce that we're taking a 3-minute break? I don't remember.
You would just call a motion for a recess of 3 to 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, I would entertain a motion for a recess of 3 to 5 minutes to reconvene at approximately 9:10 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, see motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Sean,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. I will see you all in a few minutes. All right, looks like we're all back. And Elijah, would we just entertain a motion to reconvene the meeting at 9:11 p.m.?
Yes.
All right, I would entertain a motion to
So
reconvene the
moved.
meeting. Thank you.
Sorry.
Second.
No worries. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Sean?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. We are back in session. All right, our next agenda item is item 5, 220 Providence Highway, public hearing for the consideration of an environmental impact and design review approval for a change of use from a hair salon to a shipping and printing business in the Lamberts Plaza at 220 Providence Highway. I will read a portion of the hearing notice to open the public hearing. The Westwood Planning Board will hold a remote public hearing on Tuesday, September 24th, 2024 at 7 p.m. via Zoom regarding an application filed by Justin Ferris on behalf of Westwood Realty Ventures LLC for consideration of an environmental impact and design review EIDR approval pursuant to section 7.3 of the Westwood zoning bylaw for the purposes of a change of use from a hair salon to a shipping and printing business with interior cosmetic alterations in Lamberts Plaza at 220 Providence Highway, Westwood, Mass. 02090 in accordance with PV-24-37. The property is in the single residence B SRB zoning district. Land affected, assessors map 24, lot 074. Property owner is Westwood Realty Ventures LLC. All right, it looks like we have the applicant here. Good evening and welcome. You're on mute. Sorry.
Great start. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present before the board tonight. Specifically, thank you to Elijah and Amanda for their guidance dealing with this unique zoning situation. My name is Justin Ferris. I represent Westwood Realty Ventures, owner of 220 to 310 Providence Highway, more commonly known as Lamberts Plaza. I'm here tonight to request the board's approval for a change of use pertaining to a currently vacant space within the plaza. Lamberts Plaza is currently improved by 2 existing commercial buildings along with the Lamberts greenhouse. The site contains roughly 240 parking spaces. It's important to note that no changes are proposed to the existing site conditions with this proposed change of use. As noted, the parcel is zoned single residence B, but it's been operating as a commercial retail plaza since the 1970s. Due to the zoning, any proposed change of use needs the board's approval before moving forward to continue with a pre-existing non-conforming commercial use. The space in question is 248 Providence Highway. It's a 1,600 square foot former hair salon. The hair salon closed in May of 2023, and the space has been vacant since. We are proposing to fill the space with a retail printing and shipping business called Ship It Boston. The business will offer professional packing, shipping, and printing services, as well as complementary business solutions, such as notary services, marketing material prep, passport photo services, things of that nature. It will work with the USPS, UPS, FedEx, and DHL for the shipping needs. The hours of operation coincide with normal business hours, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, shortened hours on Saturday, and closed on Sunday. There will be no late night pickups or anything. All pickups from the national carriers will be either in the morning or early afternoon. The hours of operation are consistent with other businesses in the plaza. As noted, there's no changes proposed to the existing conditions of the site. That's why we asked for a waiver for the lighting plan, stormwater drainage report, things of that nature, as none of that will be affected by this change of use. Everything related to the construction of this business is contained within the space, and it's mostly cosmetic, non-structural walls taken down, paint, things of that nature. The business aims to fill a market gap. It's going to be a business support center for many of the small businesses within Westwood, and many tenants of the plaza have already expressed the desire to use their services once they're up and running. Like I said, all the proposed work will take place within the space itself. There will be no negative impact to the environment and no increased traffic from the use. With that being said, I'd open it up to any questions you guys may have regarding the change of use.
Thank you very much. Elijah, any comments or insights from staff?
Yes, so I think that the change of use as presented does benefit the complex, seeing that there is a vacancy at the moment and a new business in the town related to this nature is welcome. Related to the actual zoning, I just wanted to read a comment from the building commissioner, which reads, the proposed use would fall under the printing / copy / publishing establishment less than 4,000 square feet use in the Westwood zoning bylaw, while the previous use was a hair salon, which is considered a personal services use. The parking requirements for the new use are less than those for the previous tenant, and no changes are proposed to the site or exterior of the building. This change of use would not result in adverse effects to the abutting properties or the existing commercial development.
Thank you. Excellent. All right, then I would open up the floor to questions and comments from board members. I'm not seeing any hands. Sean? No?
Seems fairly straightforward to me.
All right.
Agreed.
Yes, I would agree with that as well. And I appreciate that it's a business that I'm fairly certain we don't have in town already. So I appreciate that it's filling a need that is not a redundant need. It's a new need. So I'm actually personally really looking forward to having that facility in town. All right. If there were no other comments or questions from board members, this is a public hearing, so I would open the floor for public participation. Again, if you would like to share a comment or a question, feel free to raise your hand. We can promote you to panelist, or you can enter your comment or question in the Q&A section of the Zoom app. We would just need your full name and address to for the record. Either way, thank you very much. And I'll give it a moment. I'm not seeing any hands raised, nor am I seeing anything in the Q&A. So if there are no questions, comments from the public, board members, or staff, we have a few motions to go through for this application. I believe the first one would be motion on waivers.
I, Sean Weller, move that the planning board grant the following waivers in association with the application for the environmental impact and design review EIDR approval for 220 Providence Highway as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on August 9th, 2024. 1. Waiver from strict compliance with section 7.3.7.1.6 of the Westwood zoning bylaw requiring the submission of a stormwater drainage report. 2. Waiver from strict compliance with section 7.3.7.2 of the Westwood zoning bylaw requiring the submission of an exterior lighting plan. 3. Waiver from strict compliance with section 7.3.7.3 of the Westwood zoning bylaw requiring the submission of a full traffic study. 4. Waiver from strict compliance with section 7.3.7.5 of the Westwood zoning bylaw requiring the submission of photographs.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the waivers? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Sean?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries. The next motion would be on the EIDR.
I, Sean Weller, move that the planning board grant the environmental impact and design review EIDR approval for 220 Providence Highway as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on August 9th, 2024, subject to the following conditions. 1. Except as modified by the conditions and findings hereof, the project shall comply with the project plans and with the conditions of all prior decisions for the property in all respects, and the applicant shall pursue completion of the project with reasonable diligence and continuity. 2. If the project or any condition imposed in this decision requires any other permit, license, or other approval from any town of Westwood board, commission, or agency, or other Commonwealth or federal regulatory agency, the applicant shall make an appropriate application for the same and shall obtain all required approvals prior to the start of any work. If any condition of such permit, license, or other approval from any other board, committee, or agency is inconsistent with this decision, the applicant shall make application to the planning board for an amendment of this decision, and the planning board shall consider such application in accordance with the requirements of MGL Chapter 40A, Section 9, and all applicable planning board rules and regulations. 3. Any proposed alterations, modifications, deletions, or changes to the decision shall be requested in writing to the town planner and building commissioner prior to implementation. A. Proposed alterations which are considered de minimis by the building commissioner may be accepted as a note to the file. B. Proposed alterations which are considered minor by the building commissioner shall require the filing of a modification application of said approval for review by the planning board at a publicly posted planning board meeting. C. Proposed alterations which are determined to be major by the building commissioner or by the planning board shall be considered by the planning board as a formal amendment to the approval and will require a new public hearing before the planning board. 4. The applicant shall submit a sign plan for review and approval by the town planner for any signage not included in this application and shall obtain sign permits from the building division prior to the installation of any sign on the property. 5. A copy of this decision and the project plan shall be kept on the project site at all times during construction. 6. All project-related construction activities shall comply with the timeframe set forth in the town's general bylaws, Chapter 292, for noise and construction, which allow such work Monday through Saturday between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and Sunday between the hours of 12 p.m. and 7 p.m. 7. The decision shall lapse if a substantial use thereof or construction thereunder has not begun except for good cause within 2 years following the grant thereof. The planning board may extend such approval for good cause upon the written request of the applicant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Phil?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Then I believe we need a motion to close the public hearing.
I, Sean Weller, move that the planning board close the EIDR public hearing for the change of use from a personal services establishment to a printing/copy/publishing establishment less than 4,000 square feet at 220 Providence Highway.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Kate?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. Public hearing is closed. Thank you very much, and good luck with the project.
Good
Great.
luck. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, you
You as
too.
well.
All right, so our next agenda item is, 569 High Street, public hearing for the consideration of shared parking special permit for the purposes of sharing 15 parking spaces with 541 to 543 High Street through a shared parking agreement, in addition to the 26 spaces at 569 High Street, to meet the parking requirement of 41 spaces that will accommodate 122 seats and up to 20 employees for Bar Cino at 569 High Street. As this is a public hearing, I will read a portion of the hearing notice. To open the hearing, the Westwood Planning Board will hold a remote public hearing on Tuesday, September 24th, 2024 at 7 p.m. via Zoom regarding an application filed by Bar Cino Westwood, Inc. for consideration of a reduction of required minimum number of parking spaces special permit pursuant to Section 6.1.9 of the Westwood zoning bylaw for the purposes of sharing 15 parking spaces with 541 to 543 High Street through a shared parking agreement, in addition to the 26 spaces at 569 High Street, to meet the parking requirement of 41 spaces that will accommodate 122 seats and up to 20 employees for Bar Cino at 569 High Street, Westwood, Mass. 02090, in accordance with PB-24-40. The property is in the local business A, LBA zoning district and within the Water Resource Protection Overlay District, WRPOD, land affected, assessors map 09,113, property owner Joseph F. Carter Jr., trustee, CO 569 High Street Realty Trust. All right. Do we have folks from the applicant team here?
Ken has been promoted.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you.
Right. We can hear you, we cannot see you, but that is all right. If you'd like to kind of give us an overview of the application, I think that would be most helpful.
I'll try to.
You're muted now, sir. Sorry.
That's all right. I'm trying to get my camera turned on here.
No worries.
There we go. Okay.
Nice
So
to see
thank you
you.
for hearing our application this evening. When we last appeared in front of the board, we were requesting a special use permit to satisfy the parking requirement as you noted in your explanation of our application. We have secured 15 parking spaces from 543 High Street. We have submitted that written agreement with Colonial Route 109 LLC, the owners of that property, and are back in front of the board now to seek approval for that permit. As you outlined, again, 20 employees would require 10 parking spaces, and then 122 guests would require 31 parking spaces for a total of 41. We've submitted an on-site parking plan that includes 26 spaces, which were pretty much almost exactly the same plan as the previous restaurant, Chiara. Then when adding back in the 15 spaces at 543 High Street, we satisfy that requirement of 41 total parking spaces.
Thank you. Elijah, were there any thoughts, insights from staff?
Yes, so the application, I think one comment that I don't think I had mentioned is just in terms of the actual proposed shared parking spaces. If the board does decide to approve it, I would suggest a condition be that there is signage and a signage plan directing the foot traffic of patrons and staff to and from 541 to 543 High Street, and Bar Cino be submitted for review and approval by the town planner if the board decides to approve it, just to make sure that there's a certain level of safety and direction given to patrons.
Thank you. And I was just looking at the parking plan, just for clarity, in case people are watching, the overflow parking is proposed in what I always kind of thought was one big lot. It's that the brick building kind of on the end, right? The medical building, that's where the overflow parking is being proposed for.
That's correct.
Okay. Just for, we're not talking about across the street or down the street. I think a lot of people think it's all one big lot. So for me, that the fact that it's contiguous is a positive. And Phil, I saw your hand up. I didn't mean to jump the line, but I thought for clarity, it would be helpful to, yes, thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. I just had a question. How long, the agreement doesn't have an amount of time? How long is the agreement supposed to be in place? It just says, yeah, you don't say like, this is for a 1 year, 2 year, or any amount of time.
The one important point that was agreed to with the owners of the property, again, Colonial Route 109 LLC, was that we didn't impair the title of his property, so they're willing to allow us to park there. If they should decide to sell the property, then they would rescind our rights to park.
Okay, it doesn't say any of that. It just, when I read it, I thought he could you could get an approval and then he could rescind it like next week or something like that. Obviously that's not the intent, but I guess I just wanted to have some assurance that after, you come before the board, that the actual agreement stays in place.
I totally understand, and I don't know what mechanism we could put in place that would make you comfortable with that. But certainly, if the owners of the property should decide not to allow us to park, and they basically make that known to the planning board and or the select board, that that our special use permit would be rescinded as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you could probably do, I don't want to play lawyer, but you could probably do like a quick little amendment just to say, it's for X amount of time or until the time that the property is sold, at which point it would not, it would not stay with the property. Something simple if you have a lawyer that could probably just make sure that it stays with you during the operation and while the other party stays in existence and owns the property.
Then I would, obviously, I would need to just go back to the owners of the property. I don't foresee that as being an issue.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not. I noted that, and other than that, it seems like it's fine. Thanks.
Thank you. Sean?
Would we need to put any type of condition to that effect in our own approval?
I think it wouldn't hurt to add a condition saying that the owner or that the applicant submit an updated agreement prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit.
Yeah, or just to submit to you, Elijah, just to make sure that it is consistent with, the ownership of the property and whatnot. That's the only thing I think needs to be done. And then we could probably just have it as a short condition.
I think we could probably secure that agreement from the ownership prior to a issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from board members?
My one other question related to some of the staff comments that I saw in the system. Have we addressed everything around the need for accessible parking spaces?
Yes, we have two handicap spaces. I understand that meets the requirement that
Yep.
Right up against the building, basically, and then one right near the signage on High Street.
Okay. Thanks. And then the second note, I was seeing a note about the applicant needing to obtain a reduced parking special permit approval. Is that included in our process here, or is that modified by the now inclusion of the 15 spaces? And that might be a question for our town staff.
Yes, this application is the reduced parking special permit.
So I want to make sure we had all the bases covered that were mentioned in the staff comments you provided us. Thanks. I'm good on this.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from board members? I'm scrolling quickly. Looks like no. I had one quick one, and I think I know the answer to this question, but I just want to confirm. So, given the scenario that we talked about, like if the property were to be sold and the parking privileges were rescinded, is that covered by condition 4? If at any time the building commissioner determines that parking provisions are inadequate, the applicant would need to come back to us. So would that fall under that condition so that we're insulated?
That's correct.
Okay, then that was, like I said, I thought I knew the answer to the question, but I wanted to be clear before we started making motions. Then I had nothing else either. So if there are no questions and comments, this is a
Q&A question.
Yes, this is a public hearing. So I would open up the floor to public comment. If anyone would like to ask a question or make a comment, please raise your hand. We can promote you to panelist, or you may use the Q&A portion of the Zoom app. We just need your full name and address for the record. I do see a hand raised. If we could promote that gentleman to panelist.
There we go. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Welcome.
how are you? My name is Nick Pazio, and I'm the abutter next door. Just two questions. Has there been the applicant have an increase in number of seats from the previous restaurant? That's my first question. And the second is, just so I'm clear, are the additional 15 parking spaces, Ken, did you say that was at the building down the end there in the
Yes.
same general parking lot?
Yes, Nick, at 543, 109 Colonial LLC is the ownership there. Greg and John Sanchez.
Okay, so that's two buildings down from where we are then.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, so are we adding more seats?
I believe Kiara had 98 seats, and our total count of 122 includes the outdoor seating. So that would be, basically 3 months out of the year during the summer when we would seat that outside patio.
Okay, so in general, the way I'm looking at it, we have 26 parking spaces on the property itself.
Correct.
For 120 guests.
Right, and so I believe the bylaws speak to 4 guest seats per parking space, and that was why we were required to get an extra 15 spaces. So the 20 employees requires 10 spaces. So really, the overflow parking is just an additional 5 spaces at that remote location next to your building.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought that's fine. That's fine with me. It's, we're gonna be neighbors. The comment that I made regarding the parking, I thought it was down the street at the Salvatore's building there, but so as long as it's on the same, so your people can walk past our building right to that.
Correct.
To the restaurant. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine.
Mr. Pazio, could you just give us your the number, your address for the
Sure.
record?
555 High Street,
Thank you.
right next door.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, anytime, Ken. I wish you the best of luck there.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, I'll give public participation another moment. I'm not seeing any other hands raised, nor am I seeing anything in the Q&A. So with that, if there are no further questions or comments from board members, staff, or the public, I would entertain a motion. I think we have a couple on this one.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to ask prior to this. Ken, do you intend on reinstalling the planters that were previously at that outdoor patio for screening?
That's correct, and we just received a landscaping plan today, which was basically the planters at the patio, and then kind of there are some 2 areas where planters would be right up against the building, and then we'll also be planting or landscaping the island by the signage. So we're beautifying that. I mean, the property looks pretty shabby right now, so we'll be making sure that prior to opening that's completed and in compliance with native plantings. It's going to be pretty generic. Some of it will be just some mulch, some stone, and then some native plantings in the planters themselves.
Awesome. Thank you for that explanation, Madam Chair. I would just I'll just suggest that the board include a condition of approval that I'm able to review the landscape plan as proposed.
I support that. All right.
I do as well.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so if there are no additional comments or questions from anybody. I would entertain a motion. I think the first one is on waivers.
Yes.
I, Sean Weller, move that the planning board grant the following waivers in association with the, oh, this looks like 220 Providence still.
Oh, my apologies.
Thanks. I, Sean Weller, move that the planning board grant the following waivers in association with the application for the Environmental Impact and Design Review, EIDR approval for 569 High Street as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on August 9th, 2024. 1, waiver from strict compliance with section 7.3.7.1.6 of the Westwood zoning bylaw requiring the submission of a stormwater drainage report. 2, waiver from strict compliance with section 7.3.7.3 of the Westwood zoning bylaw requiring the submission of a full traffic study. Do I need to amend my motion to say August 29th instead of August 9th?
If we can indicate that it's a Scrivener's error and that it's August 29th.
Okay.
Okay, second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on waivers? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Phil?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. I would entertain the next motion.
I, Sean Weller, move that the planning board grant the reduction of required minimum number of parking spaces special permit approval for 569 High Street as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on August 29th, 2024, subject to the following conditions. 1, except as modified by the conditions and finding hereof, the project shall comply with the project plans and with the conditions of all prior decisions for the property in all respects, and the applicant shall pursue completion of the project with reasonable diligence and continuity. 2, if the project or any condition imposed in this decision requires any other permit, license, or other approval from any town of Westwood board, commission, or agency, or other Commonwealth or federal regulatory agency, the applicant shall make an appropriate application for the same and shall obtain all required approvals prior to the start of any work. If any condition of such permit, license, or other approval from any other board, committee, or agency is inconsistent with this decision, the applicant shall make application to the planning board for an amendment of this decision, and the planning board shall consider such application in accordance with the requirements of MGL Chapter 40A, Section 9, and all applicable planning board rules and regulations. 3, any proposed alterations, modifications, deletions, or changes to the decision shall be requested in writing to the town planner and the building commissioner prior to implementation. A, proposed alterations which are considered de minimis by the building commissioner may be accepted as a note to the file. B, proposed alterations which are considered minor by the building commissioner shall require the filing of a modification application of said approval for review by the planning board at a publicly posted planning board meeting. C, proposed alterations which are determined to be major by the building commissioner or by the planning board shall be considered by the planning board as a formal amendment to the approval and require a new public hearing before the planning board. 4, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall submit a signage plan directing the foot traffic of patrons and staff to and from 541 to 543 High Street and Bar Cino at 569 High Street for review and approval by the town planner. 5, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall submit an updated parking agreement with the owner of 541 to 543 High Street and Bar Cino at 569 High Street, reflective of the views expressed by the planning board on September 24th, 2024, for review and approval by the town planner. 6, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the applicant shall submit an updated landscape plan with Massachusetts native species reflective of the views expressed by the planning board on September 24th, 2024, for review and approval by the town planner. 7, if at any time the building commissioner determines that parking provisions are inadequate to serve the needs of the business, the applicant shall address the apparent parking inadequacy by returning to the planning board for a modification of the special permit. 8, the applicant shall submit a sign plan for review and approval by the town planner for any signage not included in this application and shall obtain sign permits from the building division prior to the installation of any sign on the property. 9, a copy of this decision and the project plan shall be kept on the project site at all times during construction. 10, all project-related construction activities shall comply with the timeframe set forth in the town's general bylaws, Chapter 292, for noise and construction, which allows such work Monday through Saturday between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and Sunday between the hours of 12 p.m. and 7 p.m. 11, the decision shall lapse if a substantial use thereof or construction thereunder has not begun, except for good cause, within 2 years following the grant thereof. The planning board may extend such approval for good cause upon the written request of the applicant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Sean?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. All right. Then I would need one more motion.
I, Sean Weller, move that the planning board close the reduction of required minimum number of parking spaces special permit for the purposes of sharing 15 parking spaces with 541 to 543 High Street to a shared parking agreement, in addition to the 26 spaces at 569 High Street to meet the parking requirement of 41 spaces that will accommodate 122 seats and 20 employees for Bar Cino at 569 High Street.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Phil?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Kate? Aye. I vote aye as well. Motion carries. The public hearing is closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
We look forward to seeing all of you.
Thank you.
Yes, I actually,
We'll
I
be
had
there.
kind of a sidebar question because people keep asking me, do you have a projected date of opening?
So from the time we get a CO, which we're hoping to get final inspections this week and a CO early next week, we'll start hiring and training, and it's usually about 4 weeks. So we're shooting for the first week in November.
Wonderful.
Right.
That's good news. Thank
Look
you.
forward to it. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you all. Appreciate your help.
Thank you. Have a great night. All right. Go back to my screen here. Our next agenda item is number 7. Public meeting for consideration of a modification to the Morgan Farm Estates Open Space Residential Development OSRD definitive subdivision and Morgan Farm Estates OSRD-EIDR approval at 9 Appleseed Lane, continued from 9/10/24. All right, Elijah, I know some of this was in flux. Did you have any updates for us?
Yes, so there were a few updates. Since Thursday of last week, I'll say I have requested the applicant to make a few changes to the A&R plan, which coincides with this modification application to include some to resolve some technical deficiencies. Namely being the identification of a body of water within 1,000 feet of the property, as well as clearly indicating the current square footage of the site and the remaining square footage of the site once the A&R plan were to be executed. I also wanted to make a point of a correction that unlike some of the previous applications we had earlier tonight, we are actually able to move forward with the modification without having to necessarily have the A&R at the same time. So with that, if the board were so inclined, if you remember, this application came before us last year, and there was some issue as it relates to the roadway work that was being conducted, and the applicant had asked for the release of funds in relation to it. That was the manholes that needed to be to grade with the roadway and comply with the town of Westwood's rules and regulations, and to also be witnessed by our acting town engineer or designee. And so that still is in flux. And so I would suggest that if the board were to grant the modification of the subdivision, then a condition of approval be that the applicant is to rectify the manholes.
Thank you. Oh, and I see we have Mr. Petrosi with us. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I enjoy the discussion tonight.
Wonderful. So it sounds, if I understand correctly, Elijah, we can proceed with item number 7 and then take item number 8, which was the A&R plan, separately.
That's correct.
Wonderful. All right, well then I'm happy to give you the floor, Mr. Petrosi, and you're welcome to give us an overview of your application.
Well, essentially, we have two homeowners that have decided that they wanted to alter their lot lines so they could trade a portion of their property to one another, for landscaping purposes. That is the portion of the land that is approximately 4,300 and something square feet. It's shown on the plan, and that essentially is the area that is shown on as a an A&R plan as being not a buildable lot. It's simply to the homeowner of lot 1R, Mr. Frangiadakis, did some landscaping, thinking that this portion of the properties belonged to him. It turned out that it was not belonging to him. So the neighbors reached an agreement and asked me to file an application to modify the plan, which we've done on this lot 4. We've done many times, or 3-4 previous times to tonight. We never really had to go through this process with an EIDR or whatever you're calling it. It's basically a straightforward A&R plan, and the decision allows us to alter lot lines as long as we didn't increase the number of building lots within the project. So I take offense to what Elijah has just said, trying to link this to other issues relative to the project. It's right now, Morgan Farm Road is a private way in this area, and it probably will stay a private way as long as we have no resolution to the ridiculous issues that have been brought up regarding 3 manhole covers.
Thank you. All right, Elijah, I know you gave us kind of an overview. Were there any other staff comments on this application before I move on to board comments?
I would, give me a second. If you would like to go on to board comments, I can look through and get back to you on that.
Sure, no problem. Thank you. All right, I'll open up the floor to board member questions, comments.
Elijah, I can take over screen sharing.
I'm looking to see if I see any hands up. So far, I do not.
Thank you.
I don't see any hands up from board members. Were there? Oh, Sean, yes.
I guess and maybe this is what Elijah's searching for. I think I just might request a little more clarity on the manhole cover issue and how that relates to what we're modifying here. That'll be helpful to me.
Well, essentially, there's an existing security with the town relative to the completion of the roadway and utilities. We've requested that we believe, in our opinion, that the work has been completed adequately and professionally and up to the standards of the town standards. But unfortunately, the board has refused to release the funds. So that's where it stands. The road is private. The work that's been mentioned by Elijah is bonded, it's secured. If the board wants to resolve it, you can try to pull the bond and do the work yourselves. Or we, as I've suggested in past discussions with Elijah and emails, that this be resolved in a reasonable way. And we haven't had any success in the last, 12 to 18 months. So, quite frankly, it's completely unrelated to what's before the board right now.
Are
So
we looking at,
Sean,
Amanda, is this the old one as compared to the most recent one? This is November 2021.
What are you referring to?
Yes. So Amanda, just so this is
This is the older
previous
plan
version,
because the-
This is the older version, I think.
All right.
right.
Hold on a second.
Um,
But Sean, to answer your question, this is a modification to an OSRD. And so because this is part of the subdivision, that's why the work on the street is relevant.
Well, I disagree with you, and I don't really want to argue about it, but if you read the decision, this goes back to 2013. If you read the decision clearly gives the owners the ability to adjust lot lines to, provided that there are no additional building lots provided. And as evidence of that, there were 3 prior plans or for this particular lot that lot lines were adjusted and there was no modification of an EIDR decision. So, you know, these things happen over time. People change and people get different opinions and other things like that. But clearly, this is not one of those plans that would require a modification of an EIDR application or decision. This is a lot line for 2 neighbors that want to trade some land to each other. I can't believe we're having this discussion, to be quite honest with you.
Kate, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So I appreciate this being before us. I don't have a problem with moving the lot lines based on what I've heard. I do just want to remind the applicant, this is a different board than who you've been in front of in the past, and we are allowed to discuss anything that comes before us. And
Absolutely, I don't disagree with you.
yeah, so we're just gonna go right through it, and let's just do that.
Right, but with all due respect, I mean, the manholes and the completion of the roadway have nothing to do with the EIDR. We've completed the roadway, and to link one with the other is completely inappropriate, and it doesn't really matter what board you're in front of or who the members are. This is clearly an unrelated matter to switching of lot lines in an A&R plan.
Mr. Petrozzi,
So,
understand we disagree with that view.
if I may, just wanted to go back to the peer review as it relates to the manhole covers. I just want to read what is the outstanding issue is that after issuing the previous report, the developer raised the 3 drain manholes to grade. However, the temporary pavement patch is not adequate for acceptance. The pavement was not cleanly cut. The patch appears to be made with an unknown depth of cold patch and is not sealed. The permanent patch must be neatly cut larger to be adequately compact with the compact gravel base. It must be paved with hot mix asphalt to match full depth of roadway and sealed. Notify the town to witness paving.
Elijah, didn't we discuss this with Mr. Petrozzi way back last year?
That is correct.
I recall the discussion. I think, Mr. Petrozzi, we've already had that discussion, didn't we?
Well, so I'm sure if you're on the planning board, you must be familiar with the subdivision rules and regulations and the bonding requirements and the security that's been posted. So we currently have an impasse. Wall Street Development believes that the work has been done in accordance with the regulations for this type of work. You have a peer reviewer that was not on site, and you have a DPW department that was not on site to witness the work. So we have on one side, Wall Street says the work is done appropriately. You have on the other side a peer reviewer that the planning board seems to be leaning towards, that says that because they didn't witness the work, that the bond money should not be released. So how do you resolve this little this matter? So the planning board has my money on deposit or with the bank tripartite agreement that's secured for this work. The planning board has a few options they can pursue if they choose. They can have a public hearing and try to pull the money, in which case we would object, or we can work it out. I've suggested to Elijah that we have a discussion with the peer reviewer, because there's obviously more ways to remedy this thing that has been suggested in that report that is over a year and a half old. So, you know, again, they're two separate matters. I don't know why you're linking the two. It's two separate matters.
If I may, Madam Chair,
Yes.
so the subdivision as it stands remains incomplete due to the roadway not being meeting the grade and the final inspection by our peer review and acting town engineer. So we would need that resolved, and in order to grant this modification, a condition making sure that that is resolved would allow for that.
Let me just say this, Elijah. Put that condition in there, and I grant you, I'll give you 100% guarantee that you will be in court with that decision.
Mr. Petrosi.
No, I'm not going to get into this. Please, listen, I've waited all night. I'm going to say my piece. I've listened to everybody else.
Please just remain respectful. We're respectful of you.
I'm just telling you.
Please keep your voice respectful.
I'm simply saying that linking this issue with the EIDR modification, if you think that decision requires, if you think that this modification of a lot line requires that kind of a decision, fine. I'm willing to admit or go along with the board and say, yeah, you need an EIDR. I don't agree with you. So we're here again. We have an issue. You have an A&R plan in front of you. Does the A&R plan meet the requirements of Section 81P of the Subdivision Control Law? Yes or no?
Thank you. I cannot speak to your experience on other applications if I was not a member of the board, but speaking for myself, we're being advised by our subject matter experts, our town staff, and our folks who tell us, you know, that this is part of the process. Excuse me, I'm speaking. The conditions of your permit dictate that this is the process we should follow. That's what we've been advised.
Who is advising you?
Our town staff, and was town council advising? I'm not sure, but
well, why don't we get town council?
Excuse me, I am speaking. I would appreciate it if we accord you the ability to speak your piece when you are speaking. I would like to finish my thought before you interrupt me. What was I saying? I was saying we follow the process. We rely on our subject matter experts and town staff, including town council, to advise us on what our duty is under the bylaws that your permit was issued under. I understand you don't agree that that is what we should be doing, but we've heard from at least 2 town staff members that it is well within our purview, given that this is all part of the EIDR and your permit process, the OSRD-EIDR permit process, that we are well within our purview to consider those manholes as part of this, because it's a holistic, comprehensive permit, and you're asking to change a part of it. So I understand you don't agree.
So
I think we'll see how the board feels about whether or not they want to impose that condition. Now you may speak.
No, well, listen, I asked the question. I asked whether or not the A&R plan complies with the rules and regulations of the subdivision control law. Is that a yes or no? The A&R plan is separate from the EIDR. Do we agree with that?
I agree. My understanding is your A&R plan, the last one that I looked at, is still incomplete. That is my understanding.
Well, then I don't think that we're going anywhere here. If you feel like you want to link these two together, feel free to do so. Okay. I will file an appeal as my rights are, and then we'll spend money with an attorney or whatever and do whatever you want over such a ridiculous thing.
We understand, and I appreciate your perspective, and I believe it would be up to my colleagues, the board members, to decide whether or not they want to pursue that condition, including myself. So I appreciate your perspective. I think we all appreciate your perspective on that issue. And we hear you. So
Can you tell me, excuse me, Madam Chairman, can you tell me where the A&R plan is deficient?
Elijah, would you like to address that, or would you prefer I?
Yeah, so let me take a look here. The application. So yeah, so I'll share my screen. So the application here clearly shows that at lot 1R, it shows the current square footage at 35,402 square feet. And then with the addition of this parcel 4R1, it would conclude with 39,794 square feet. The lot over here does not indicate the same in terms of showing what is current versus what is being proposed. That needs to be updated in order to meet the technical requirements of an A&R per the Westwood rules and regulations. In addition to that, the locust map does not include a body of water at Howisset Brook, which does run within 1,000 feet of the property. It is a body of water that is clearly marked on plans. I can show here, and so I would suggest to the board that that is a significant body of water, as it is indicated here, and that it needs to be shown on a locus plan. Those are the two outstanding technical deficiencies which the applicant needs to correct in order to have a complete A&R plan.
Excuse me, Elijah, would you remind the board that I requested a waiver?
But the math doesn't work on what Elijah just was showing us.
Excuse me, I submitted a chronology with copies of the plans showing that the math is accurate. The engineer who stamps the plan certifies that the area in the plan is accurate. You have somebody telling our engineer that he's not done a proper calculation of lot area on a plan where he stamps and certifies that it's accurate. So
but
why do I pay an engineer to prepare a plan to have someone tell him that they didn't do it right?
That's why we have a town planner to make sure to review, subject to our satisfaction, that things are answered appropriately.
I think you really, Elijah isn't really being straightforward with the board.
Mr. Petrosi, please be respectful.
I am. I'm trying to explain. I sent the information to him. He's clearly not making a representation that is accurate. I asked for a waiver.
Sure, I think we did get the note about the waiver. At least I saw that.
Can you have a vote on the waiver then?
I'm not sure that that's within our purview, at least for certain. I'm not sure that certain of the things you're asking for are things that we could grant a waiver for, even if we were inclined to. Before we continue on, Kate has had her hand up patiently. So Kate.
Yeah, thank you. Elijah, could you just stop sharing the screen for just a minute? Yeah. Thank you so much. So I do just want to get clear for myself. The project itself is not complete because the street is not complete, correct? So Mr. Petrosi, please understand, from my point of view, if the entire project is not complete, that means anything that's incomplete is up for review when you ask to review anything on that project. So that's my point of view. I don't know if that's legally accurate, but that's my point of view. Anything outstanding, I get to look at again at this point, and it is my job, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, to review everything that is incomplete related to this project. So I hear you, and I do want to say I'm not used to having such an argumentative applicant on several occasions, it leaves me not really knowing what we're supposed to do next. So maybe we could just take the temperature down a little bit, slow things down a little bit. I appreciate you're frustrated by this process, but I would like to make sure that we do this correctly so that whatever steps you take next address what needs to be addressed for this to be successful. So I'm going to, at this point, turn to Elijah slowly with a calm voice and just say, Elijah, do you have a recommendation for me as a board member for what I should do at this point?
I would recommend that the board take up the modification request, deem it a minor modification, and condition it with a condition to address the roadway concerns.
Madam Chair, if I were to receive some wording from Elijah to that effect, I'd be happy to read a motion.
Thank you, Kate. Were there any other questions, comments from board members or staff before we moved on to the motion for that item? That was item number 7, yes?
Yes.
7, yes.
Because we kind of trickled into number 8 as well. I mean, they are related. So were there any other questions, comments from board members before we were to entertain a motion on the minor modification? Not seeing any. All right, then yes, if we have some language and Kate's willing to read, or anyone's willing to read the motion, I would happily entertain it.
I move that the planning board determine the modification of the open space residential development OSRD definitive subdivision and OSRD-EIDR approval for 9 Appleseed Lane as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on September 5th, 2024, to be minor in nature.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Kate?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Vote aye as well. The motion carries. All right, there is another motion involved with this item.
I move that the planning board grant the minor modification of the open space residential development OSRD definitive subdivision and OSRD-EIDR approval for 9 Appleseed Lane as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on September 5th, 2024, subject to the following conditions. 1, except as modified by the conditions and findings hereof, the project shall comply with the project plans and with the conditions of all prior decisions in all respects, and the applicant shall pursue completion of the project with reasonable diligence and continuity. 2, if the project or any condition imposed in this decision requires any other permit, license, or other approval from any board or commission or any agency of the town of Westwood or other regulatory agency of the Commonwealth or the federal government, the applicant shall make an appropriate application for same and shall obtain all required approvals prior to the start of any work. If any condition of such permit, license, or other approval from any other board, committee, or agency is inconsistent with this decision, the applicant shall make application to the planning board for an amendment of this decision. Thank you. And the planning board shall consider such application in accordance with the requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, and all applicable planning board rules and regulations. Thank you. 3, any proposed alterations, modifications, deletions, or changes to the decision shall be requested in writing to the town planner and building commissioner prior to implementation. A, proposed alterations which are considered de minimis by the building commissioner may be accepted as a note to the file. B, proposed alterations which are considered minor by the building commissioner shall require the filing of a modification application of said approval for review by the planning board at a publicly posted planning board meeting. C, proposed alterations which are determined to be major by the building commissioner or by the planning board shall be considered by the planning board as a formal amendment to the approval and will require a new public hearing before the planning board. 4, this minor modification shall become effective only upon confirmation by the town planner that the required pavement patch repairs to Morgan Farm Road, as described in the September 22nd, 2023 memorandum from Daniel Walsh and Phil Paredes of Beta Group to town planner Elijah Romulus, and as discussed by the planning board at its September 24th, 2024 meeting, have been satisfactorily made and deemed acceptable by the acting town engineer.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Kate?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Vote aye as well. Motion carries. Right, and we do not need to close that item. So the next item, as we already started discussing, item number 8.
Yes, Madam Chair, based on previous discussion, I would just suggest the board not endorse the A&R plan as presented.
Understood. Was there any, I'm sorry, was there any further discussion from board members or staff on this on this issue? Looks like none. All right, I'm sorry, Kate.
No, we're good. If I could see it again, Elijah, I can. Thank you. I move that the planning board find the approval not required application for 9 Appleseed Lane dated September 9th, 2024 to be incomplete, and that the board vote to not endorse the submitted plan as not requiring approval under the subdivision control laws.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I think you need to state the reasons why it's incomplete.
You, Mr. Petrozzi, you mean in the motion as part of?
If you're making that kind of a decision, you need to tell me exactly where the plan is deficient.
All right, Elijah, if you could, looks like you already are, detail the issues as we discussed.
And you might want to add in accordance with the discussion on September 24th, the way you do.
Thank
typically do, Elijah.
Well, not specific.
You might want to consider muting your mic, Mr. Petrozzi, if you're not able to just keep it civil.
Just trying to give you some direction.
Okay, here we go. Take 2. I move that the planning board find the approval not required application for 9 Appleseed Lane dated September 9th, 2024 to be incomplete due to technical deficiencies related to the locus map and lot identification reflective of the views expressed by the planning board on September 24th, 2024, and that the board vote to not endorse the submitted plan as not requiring approval under the subdivision control laws.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Kate?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. The motion carries. Right. And we have nothing to close on that one. All right.
Thank you very much. I'll file the appeal appropriately and we'll have another conversation.
All right. Well, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night. All right. Our next agenda item is number 9. 35 Perwal Street, and excuse me. This one is a public hearing. Sorry, I'm on the wrong page here in my notes.
Correct, yes.
And I'm trying to find the notice. I'm sorry, the legal notice here because. Elijah, do you happen to have it?
I can pull it up.
Thank you. I'm not seeing it in the packet. I apologize. Thank you. All right. The Westwood Planning Board will hold a remote public hearing on September 24th, 2024 at 7 p.m. via Zoom regarding an application filed by Nick Wu for consideration of an environmental impact and design review, EIDR, pursuant to section 7.3 of the Westwood zoning bylaw for the purposes of adding a 14-foot by 41-foot concrete pad for a freezer compressor unit on the east side of the property at 35 Perwal Street, Westwood, Mass. 02090. In accordance with PB-24-38. The property is in the Industrial Office IO zoning district and within the Flexible Multiple Use Overlay District 4, FMUOD 4, and Wireless Communication Overlay District, WCOD. Land affected, Assessors Map 24, Lot 085, property owner Marden Perwal LLC. All right, thank you. And it looks like, good evening, Mr. Wu, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present my project. So just give you a quick background. So we actually taking over this the vacant place from 35 Perwal, and we actually now trying to change the use. It was actually a cold storage for seafood, and we're gonna actually keep using the same thing as cold storage seafood. So the reason that we actually changed the request for the EIDR is that the current freezer in the storage is too old. Then we actually trying to change the new ones that is more energy efficient. So when we're changing it, the old unit is on the top of the roof, and when we actually start changing it, then the contractor give us ideas is maybe we can actually having the relocate the condensers actually by the side of the existing condenser, which is actually also as the landlord that actually owns the certified Perwal, similar the same spot. By using that spot, currently it's an empty spot, has nothing on there, and there's but we have to create a 14 by 41 feet concrete, so to actually give a stable support for the condensers. And we're gonna actually, again, so we're not changing the use, and we're not actually changing creating any traffics, and there's no trees that need to be cut, so there's very minor changes for this project. And yeah, so on the graph, that's actually what we're trying to actually create. On the right side of the right box, that is actually current, what they actually having the condensers. And so on the left side, that actually that's where we're going to put our new condensers. So you can see actually on the, if you move down a little bit on the right, that's the roof on the right. Sorry. If you zoom in, sorry, just zoom in a little bit. Yeah. So on the roof, just a little bit up to the right. Up. Sorry. Go up. Sorry, another direction. Yeah. Yeah. In that little actually rectangle. Yeah. That area. That is the current. That's where they actually old condenser locate. So we're gonna actually move that into the right box, and just so it's more easy to maintain the condensers, and also actually not adding the weight actually on the structures, current structures. So that is our request, and I hope actually I explained this well. So please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Elijah, any comments or questions from staff?
Yes, so the application is in need of a site plan, and so the applicant, I've reached out to the applicant and asked for a submission of said site plan. He did mention that he'd be working with a civil engineer, and so my suggestion to the board would be to continue this in order to get that site plan.
Thank you. I'm sorry, should the board engage in any discussion of what we've seen in case we have feedback for the applicant?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
All right, thank you. Then at this time, I would open up the floor to any board member questions or comments. Kate, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Wu, thank you for coming before us. This board is very interested in plantings and screening. So we would be really interested in seeing what you have in mind. So I just wanted to say that I'm glad to see you, but I do want a little bit more information.
Okay.
Thank you.
May I speak?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So currently I think the only thing that we're missing is the site plan, which is actually our civil engineers are working on. Is that going to be actually enough, or we need something else?
So if I may, in the site plan, you can include the screening features being, landscaping as well as fencing around the proposed equipment pad.
Of course, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Any other questions or comments from board members?
I just second that. I think that makes sense to include.
I agree as well. That was
I think we all agree.
Yes, excellent piece of feedback, Kate. Any other questions or thoughts from board members? I'm not seeing any, so at this time I'd open it up for public participation. I do see someone has their hand raised, but just for the record, if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, please raise your hand. We can promote you to panelist. We will need your full name and address for the record, or you may enter your question or comment in the Q&A in the Zoom application. And I see we have Steve Brodsky has his hand raised. If we could promote him to panelist. Hello. Good evening. Welcome.
Hi, yes. Steve Brodsky. I'm at 6 Hawk Tree Drive. I'm actually a butter to Mr. Wu's property. And so was interested, very glad to hear the request for screening and plantings. I was concerned a little bit about the noise. Wasn't sure if the compressors, the new equipment that'll be on the pad is if there's any kind of sound readings or anticipated, noise to be generated from this. But I wanted to just put that out as a question for Mr. Wu.
Yes, we actually purchased the most recent the condenser, so which is actually is compliant with all the regulations, which is actually by efficiency and also noise controls. So we can actually send you the specs actually for all the requirements, and then actually making sure that it's actually compliant with all the regulations.
That'd be great.
Yep.
That'd be great. And I think the screening proposal on the screening and some plantings would help as well. The only other comment I did have is, I agree on the lighting down there. Probably don't need additional, but the lighting in this parking area, we've noticed that they've done some things that help in other areas, like with the Amazon facility, which is to put in hats on the lighting to direct it more down. Right now, the lighting your property and also adjacent at 30 at number 30 is it pretty much broadcasts horizontally or maybe at a 45-degree angle down. So it does create a fair amount of light pollution for neighbors in the area, especially during the winter.
Okay. I'm sorry to hear that. So actually, I'm just a tenant of this place. So
Okay.
I'll definitely have your concerns actually talk to my landlords
Great.
and so have you actually fix the problems. Thank you very much for your comments.
Yeah, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. That actually, Elijah, as far as like, I know we've discussed this in other applications where we're talking about equipment, like the noise mitigation plan. With that, it sounds like we will be able to get that submitted. Is there anything in addition to the specs that we'd be looking for from Mr. Wu as far as the noise mitigation aspect goes?
Yeah, so the applicant, Mr. Wu, can submit the specs, and then if when we get to the point, we could include a condition of approval. If those specs aren't matching, we could add a condition of approval that a sound attenuation plan be included as well.
Awesome, thank you. All right, I'll give it another second on public participation. I don't see any other hands raised, nor do I see anything in the Q&A.
Someone just raised their hand.
Oh, thank you. The minute I look down, Jay Hopkins. We can promote them to panelist. Please just make sure you give us your full name and address for the record before sharing your comments.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Oh, great, thank you. Thank you all for your service, by the way. I've been listening to the meeting tonight, and it's been very interesting and informative. My name is Joanne Hopkins, and I live at 6 Hawktree Drive. I'm the spouse of Steve Brodsky. And as Steve mentioned, our property in the neighborhood is pretty adjacent to the site where the proposal is for the pad. The dimensions of the pad lead me to believe that it is quite a large undertaking for a compressor down there. I saw the site, the map or the plan that you put out a little bit earlier when you were doing your presentation. The overhead view makes it look like it might already be placed on the ground next to the building, but I just wanted to make clear, I believe that the compressors are on the roof of the building right now. So it will significantly change what the site looks like down there. And also, given the dimensions of the pad, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the difference in size for the compressor that you're proposing as opposed to what's on the roof already, because there is a very significant concern about the noise situation. It sounds like a new business is going into the property. It used to be Captain Martin Seafood. Sounds like it is going to be something else now. And the
no, yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
The Martin Seafood actually still in there. They actually just have they have a vacant space that which is actually taking that vacant space. So we're gonna actually yes, it's a new business, but the Martin Seafood gonna be there, still using the same their space.
Okay.
Yeah. So in that building, there are 2 sections. One section is actually operated by Martin Seafood, and they are the landlord of this the whole building, and we just actually taking the vacant spot.
I see. Can you share what the business is that would require this type of new adjacent refrigeration compression system?
Yeah, so we actually our company called Autotree, and we actually also the seafood wholesalers, and we actually currently operating in Boston, Massachusetts, downtown Boston, and we actually expanding our business to Westwood because actually I think the location just works very well for our operations and very close to 95, 93. So, but for your concerns, actually the old business, they actually have the condenser that is actually super old, and I have I think I have the picture of it, and then it's a building tall. It's almost like 3 stories tall. The condensers, and we actually removing that condensers, actually changing to a much more efficient condenser that is actually applied to the new energy efficient. So the energy and also noise wise, it will be much actually less than before. Not actually adding more noises or actually electric use for the new condensers.
I will say, with personal experience, we cannot hear the condensers right now, so I'm questioning whether or not with the location of where it will be at a 41-foot by 14-foot situation, that we would not hear the condensers, or that we will probably hear them with a lot more clarity. Where are the current compressors now for this space? Are they inside the building or?
They're currently actually on top of the roof. So if not, then actually it's we actually just moving from top of the roof. Yeah, you see actually those two, the very old ones, and we actually just moving those two and down to the floor, which is for easier maintenance.
I guess I thought that those compressors were being used by Captain Martin, so I didn't know.
Oh,
They've
no.
always had their trucking coming in to that area.
Yeah, so if you actually look at the building, actually this side of the building right now that we are looking at it, that is actually the vacant spot, and on the left side of it, and that's actually the Martin Seafood, and their condenser is actually on the left side of the building.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I think you can see the building is actually clearly on this actually driveway that has actually the loading dock. So all the loading docks are going to be actually belong to our business, and on the left, and this actually the larger spot is actually owned by Martin Seafood, and they actually have their condenser on the left side of the building. And,
okay.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about what the expectation is with reference to an uptick in trucking and the hours of the days? And I mean, I can tell you that the size of that type of pad for a condenser leads me to believe that this is going to be a pretty significant busy operation over at that site.
Well, actually, so we're just replacing the old ones, the old equipment into the newer models. So that means actually, again, more energy efficient and less noise. So because it's it's new equipment, and it will be much more efficient. But we can have this actually into our next hearings, and because actually we need to apply the civil engineers, and then we can actually add those into our site civil engineer plans, and so give you actually more details about actually the noise and how efficient that unit is. But it's again, the unit is actually is compliant with all the regulations.
Okay. Do you have any comments on the time of day for business operation, for your expectations around what the new business might be?
Our current business hour is 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
Okay, and you expect that to be the same type of thing with the whatever trucking or
yes,
not in the evening, not overnight hours?
No, we're the wholesaler, so normally actually we have to be actually to present in their business. So 9 to 5 is actually our operating hours.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for the information. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
For
you.
the question.
Thank you. Excellent. I see. Sean, yes.
Well, and I thought I might have seen another attendee hand go up, so I don't want to forego public comment if there's others interested. But my question for Mr. Wu, are those condensers that are going to get replaced, are they currently turned on and operational, or have they been kind of off for some time given the vacancy in that space?
Yeah, you probably can see those actually they are very old units, and when we took over, they are vacant. So we did turn them on, and it was actually the noise is okay, it's controllable, and that's why nobody actually noticing before. But yet again, it just way too old, and so we actually consulted with our contractors, and because our operation need to be actually the whole place need to be frozen at all time, and we don't want actually the using the old equipment that actually can cause the problem when we're actually doing the operations. So that's why we actually changing to the new equipment. Again, in the long run, it's actually probably it's more efficient, and so it can actually cut our electric costs, and also just actually helping the environment.
Okay, thanks for the info. Appreciate that.
Thank you for the questions.
Thank you. So if I understand correctly, you're already using the space and you're using the old equipment currently.
Oh, we turn on those because we're trying to see if they are usable. But no, we're currently actually still trying to put a new equipment in there so we can actually start using the new ones.
Okay. But you have run them. Are they running currently, or did you just kind of test them?
We tested them.
Okay. I was just trying to get a sense of whether or not people would notice the impact of those being on now. I think the specs and the information you'll provide on the new equipment will be really helpful. So I don't have anything else for right now either. Did anybody else? I don't see any other hands, nor do I see anything in the Q&A for public participation. Was there any other? Yes, I'm sorry.
There's someone who has raised their hand a couple of times and takes it down immediately, and I'm not sure if they're doing it on purpose, so I don't want to skip anyone.
Thank you. Yeah, I hadn't seen it. I know Sean did, and I looked over. No, I don't see a hand. But if there's anyone else from the public that wanted to participate, I'll give it another minute. We don't want to pass you over, or if you prefer, you can use the Q&A and just enter your question there if that's a better option.
Okay, they raised their hand. Oh, they put it right back down again.
Yeah.
Maybe see if they want to be promoted to panelists. Maybe they think it's sort of a quick up and down.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right. So Nancy, accept it if you would like to provide a comment. They neither declined or accepted, so I'm gonna
I see the hand up again.
There's
Sustained.
Nancy.
Yes.
Come on, Nancy.
All right.
I can also allow to talk if that's easier, maybe. Oh, here we go.
Oh, there we go. I know it takes a minute for the system to catch up.
Hi, Nancy. We see you now. Just make sure to come off mute.
There you go.
Hello? Hi, Nancy.
We can hear you.
And we can see you. Welcome.
Okay.
If you're
Nancy,
back
muted.
Can we unmute her? Is that something the host could do?
I can click ask to unmute, which I have.
There.
But I don't. There we go.
Also.
Hi, Nancy. If you could just give us your full name and address for the record, that would be great.
I'll write it.
Perfect. Thank you.
We can hear you now.
Yes.
We hear you. Oh, we did.
Oh, and now back on mute. I'm sorry.
There you go. You're unmuted. So if you talk now, we should be able to hear you.
That's okay.
We can hear you.
Did you have a comment?
Do you have a question, Nancy?
No.
I guess not.
All right. Well, I'll just take this moment to say that we're not taking action this evening. There will be further discussion on this application at a future meeting. And in the interim, if folks want to submit comments or questions via email, they can send them to Elijah and they will be shared with the rest of the board. So that is an option too. Excuse me, I seem to be losing my voice. Seeing no other hands raised, nor do I see anything in the Q&A, I'll put one last call out to board members and staff for questions or comments. And if there are none, I would entertain a motion.
I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for the EIDR public hearing for the equipment pad at 35 Perwal Street as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on August 16th, 2024 to Tuesday, October 15th, 2024 at 7 p.m. via Zoom, where Zoom link and associated call-in numbers will be provided on the town's calendar at the homepage at https://www.townhall.westwood.ma.us/.
Second.
I have a
And you
motion.
hit those URLs better than me, Kate.
They're tongue twisters. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Kate?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Motion carries. We will discuss this again in October. Thank you very much, Mr. Wu, and
Thank you, Mr. Wu.
see
Thank
you
you.
in
Have a good
a
evening.
few
Good
weeks. Thank you. You too. All right. I'm losing my papers here. Our next agenda item is warrant articles. Continued discussion of potential warrant articles for November 2024 fall town meeting, if any. I believe there isn't one, and May 2025 annual town meeting. I'd like to take a check-in now as it's 10 to 11. Elijah, I'm not sure how you feel, but if folks would like to defer this discussion to a subsequent meeting, if there's no pressing reason that we need to discuss this evening, I would be happy to have that discussion. If people want to talk about warrant articles, I'm happy to do that as well.
I suggest defer. I think Kate seconds my motion.
I do, unless that causes any problem for staff, if there's a reason that you need us to discuss it now.
Yeah, if there's anything we need to know.
So I guess I wanted to make a correction to the agenda actually kind of lists the November 2024 town meeting, and that is not occurring this year. So we will have town meeting in May 2025. If there is a special town meeting sometime between now and May, that'll be made a decision, but it's May 2025. And then also the only update that I have is for the 25 miles per hour speed reduction. And I know that Josh, who was not here tonight, was the biggest proponent of that. I guess just for the board's just to update the board, I did look at so basically the rules and regulations, or the regulating authority for that kind of change, would be the select board as well as the police chief. So we would have to look into getting a comment from either of those entities as it relates to this in order to proceed with that article.
Okay.
Thank you.
Clarity, thanks.
Yeah, that's helpful info. So it sounds like if we weren't to go on even a moderately deep dive of any of the warrant articles we talked about, it does not cause any issues as far as scheduling and obligations for our process. So we could defer a deeper discussion to a later meeting.
Correct.
Right.
Well, I mean, I would say the next meeting.
The next meeting.
Yeah.
I'm amenable to that if that's what my colleagues are interested in doing.
Yes, please. Do we need to make a motion on it?
It's a public meeting, so not needed.
Great.
Can I ask one question, which would be directed both to my colleagues who have been on the board longer and to town staff? If we have to gel ideas a little more at the next meeting, what is helpful for us as board members to come prepared with, to move things along a little more productively.
So I think we still need some clarity, and we're waiting for HLC related to the ADUs to see exactly what would be considered compliance guidelines. So that's one. We also have to look to HLC for compliance as it relates to the Mumford expansion. So that's two. And three being the lawn maintenance noise bylaw. I can look into potential language and share with the board at the upcoming meeting, just to get an idea of what's out there. And
If you find out what other towns have, that would be helpful, because I had thought of that.
Yes, just to my knowledge, there's Brighton and Lexington, but I can also look into see if there's other communities as well.
I think you mean Brookline.
Brookline, thank you. And yes, I think the other one would be the tree canopy bylaw, and I will look into that with the Conservation Commission. But if the board, has any ideas as it relates to those as well, those are kind of like the four to really look into going into the next meeting.
Thank you, and great question. All right, would anyone else like to ask or add anything to this kind of brief discussion of potential warrant articles? All right, wonderful. We'll take that up at our next meeting then. Thanks, everyone. Then our next agenda item is 11 minutes from the 9/10/24 planning board meeting. Did anyone have any comments or edits on the minutes?
I actually only had one on page 4. Under the roll call vote, doesn't have any vote. I don't know if she abstained or it's just blank on the motion for modification on the Mumford.
I had Kate didn't have anything next to her name.
There's no yes, no, abstain, nothing. It's a
Oh,
blank.
I'm sure it's a typo because Kate was there and I know she said yes.
Yeah, I thought so, because I know she had abstained on one that she was not for. So I think that's on middle of page 4. That's
Page 4.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay.
That's the only one I had.
I'll take care of it.
Great. Were there anyone else have any comments or edits to the minutes? All right, then I would entertain a motion that the planning board accept the minutes from the September 10th, 2024, meeting with the aforementioned edit.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Kate?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Sean?
Abstain.
Right, you weren't there. I vote aye as well. The motion carries. The minutes are accepted with that edit. Next agenda item 12, updates from agency and committee representatives. Has anyone been to any meetings? Have anything they'd like to report back on?
Dog park committee or whatever we are, working group, meets on Thursday this week, and then pedestrian advisory, whatever that's called, ped bike, the old ped bike, good old fashioned ped bike, meets Thursday night as well.
Oh, wow. So you're doing
Yes.
double duty.
I'm totally psyched.
Just to add to Kate's comment, the off-leash dog park working group will be at 6 o'clock in the library, community room, and the ped and bike advisory committee at 7:30. I believe they have been meeting at the police station at the Gillette meeting room.
Oh, well, then you can go to both.
Yeah.
At Canton Street Sidewalk Working Group, yes, we're a working group, is meeting tomorrow night at the library at 6. So Hopefully at our next meeting, I'll have some updates on where we're at on that project, but as of now, I have nothing new to report. Anyone else have any meetings, agency updates?
No significant updates. It'll probably happen after our next meeting, but Tri-River Interlocal Council will have a meeting in October on ADUs and housing. So very timely.
Excellent. Yes, that would be, hopefully we'll have some guidelines from the state by then too, and everything can kind of
Look
coincide.
forward to reporting back to you on all of that. Good.
Excellent. All right. If there are no other agency and committee updates, the next agenda item 13 is general miscellaneous updates and administrative items. Elijah, Amanda, Nora.
The portion for public comment for the CRS plan, the climate action plan, ended on September 15th, and so we'll be looking at the public comments, consolidating them, and then updating the plan accordingly. And I'm planning to submit it to the board in one of the October meetings.
Excellent.
The survey for the housing inspection plan is still open, and it'll be open through right before Thanksgiving. We had our first event, the Forum on Housing for Seniors and Persons with Disabilities. We were very happy with the attendance. We had about 33 people come. And so complete the survey if you haven't already. And then also on October 17th is the visioning session in the library community meeting room at 7 p.m.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Then our next agenda item is number 14. We have upcoming board meetings on October 15th, 2024, October 29th, 2024, and November 19th, 2024. And that was our last agenda item. So unless anyone has anything else, I would entertain a motion from Kate to adjourn.
I see
So
Kate
moved.
smiling already.
I'm like, so moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on adjournment? Seeing none, I'll take roll call. Kate?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great night,
Really
appreciate
appreciate
it.
it.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.